Right now, you're at a fork in the road. Down one lane, you're a constrained creator. You're ambitious, you get views, maybe even went viral a few times, but you don't have the systems to publish consistently. Revenue is unpredictable, and you have no team to support you, so you're doing everything yourself.
But down the second path, you are a creator CEO. You run your channel like a media company. You have repeatable formats, multiple revenue streams, and a team of A players who run the business so that you can focus on creating. Now, if you're in lane number one, this course is gonna save you years of trial and error. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and made every single mistake to build our creator company. Now, if you're in lane two, but stuck at a ceiling, we're gonna help you smash right through it.
And this isn't just random theory. These playbooks come from 10 years of combined experience building YouTube channels and online business. And because we want you to be super successful, we've created a comprehensive workbook, which you can download 100% free in the description below. So you're not just passively consuming this, but you can execute on the systems and strategies to grow your creator company. This might be the most valuable video you watch all year. So full screen it and let's get locked in. Here's how we're gonna break it down. We're gonna go through strategy, storytelling, systems, and then scale. So we are going to talk about the first piece, which is strategy.
You can work really hard and run really far, but if you're running in the wrong direction, then you just wasted all your time and all your money.
Yeah, I think there's one question that all brands and YouTubers need to really clarify. What are you building this for? I think it's a question that we've had to revisit ourselves over the years many, many times. Because when you start off with a strategy, it changes. The content that you make changes who you are. I've changed a lot as a person just from the content that we've made. Second would be, why do you want to build that brand? And the third question is, why should it be you who builds that brand? Because building a brand on YouTube never happens on accident. A lot of channels grow really, really fast without a strategy. The problem is, once that fizzles out, the reviews start dropping, they start panicking, they start trying everything, they start throwing money at things, but their channel just won't grow anymore. I would even say that at our channel, we gained a lot of traction really quickly. We didn't really have a really detailed content strategy. We had a few videos take off and that are just random viral videos. And we got a lot of subscribers, but we didn't really know what we were building. And I think if you solve that problem early, it saves you so much headache in the future. I think it's like a very grand vision to think that you're gonna become a YouTuber, you know? I wanna become a YouTuber, I wanna make videos for a living, I wanna travel the world, I wanna have my own company. It sounds amazing. And yes, that is possible, but the reality is a media company is an incredibly volatile business. We've been doing this for like 5 years. Some months we make so much money. You know, I think our best month ever was $100,000 a month. We had a 100K month and we were stoked about it. But other months that come after that, we've had months that are like 15,000, you know, 10,000. So like there's so many swings in a media business. And what strategy really does for a business, it tries its best to create sustainability. And so let's break it down into 4 big components. There are a lot of different starting points to coming up with your brand strategy, but I think the best place to start is with content market fit. Like right when we started getting really serious into YouTube, that was the same time that we actually launched our first tech startup. It was this tool called Remnote. And at the time, there were actually a whole bunch of different productivity tools similar to Remnote that were popping up. It was this niche called PKM, personal knowledge management. Yeah. So if you remember, there were tools like Roam Research back then was exploding, Obsidian, Notion. Notion took a different path than all of them, but yeah, there was all under this umbrella of personal knowledge management. And I remember that Remnote struggled for a long time to find the right audience and the right users. And we were so obsessed with this term called product market fit.
That was the only thing that mattered.
Wait, why is PMF so important though?
Product market fit is super important because that is the moment where you discover that your product is exactly what someone is going to pay for. And it's the same thing on the YouTube side.
I think Neil Mohan, who's the CEO of YouTube, has even compared YouTube to being like the startups of Hollywood. And so they kind of follow very similar patterns of how they build an audience. Instead of trying to find product market fit, you want to try to find content market fit. And we can break this down into an intersection of 3 points. So the first circle here is all about you, the creator. Are you making content that you actually want to make? Circle number 2 here is about your audience now. Are you making content that your audience loves watching? And so we've spoken to a lot of creators and most of them just focus on these 2 circles here. But it's this third one that determines whether or not your brand is going to last. Are you making content that brands would want to pay for? And if you can make content that fulfills all 3 of these, this intersection, this sweet spot right here is content market fit.
The cool part about this is that if you consistently post on YouTube and you try to get better every time, you will naturally find content market fit, because these 3 circles, this is literally what defines the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm was designed to match your content to people who actually want to watch it, to brands that will actually want to pay for those ad spots. And over 90% of YouTube channels will stay small because they are lacking one of these 3.
When we started growing our channel, our first channel, we made videos about studying productivity. And we just naturally started attracting brands like Paperlike, like Grammarly, like Shortform. Those are just the brands that came to us based on the content that we were making.
But on the other hand, we also repelled a lot of brands that were in the study space, like all the brands that cared about tutoring and test prep and board prep and stuff like that.
Because whether you like it or not, your content is sending out signals. And those signals are going to attract, or like you said, repel certain brands and audience people to your channel. Content market fit is all about who are you making videos for, and do they enjoy watching your videos? A lot of people in the YouTube space, in the YouTube world, consider this finding your niche on YouTube, right? That's like one of the most common things we always hear is finding your niche. I actually think that's like the wrong way to think about it.
I think it's not the full picture.
Yes, there's a lot more that goes into it. So when people say, what's your niche? The answer that I usually get is these big amorphous, I like to call it like college class terms. It's like, I do personal finance. I do fitness. I do psychology. I get the idea of it, but it doesn't give me any I don't feel any emotional buy-in to it. I think a better way to think about niche then, and this is probably more specific to like educational creators or educational content, we always tell our clients, think of it not as a niche, but what is the transformation that you want your viewer to experience through your content, through your channel. Our first channel, Koi, the niche that we were in was studying and self-improvement. Just that probably appeals to half the world, right?
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody, well, not everybody, but most people would agree that, yeah, they like self-improvement. If I heard self-improvement, I wouldn't really know if that was for me still. So we got super, super detailed. We wanted to help students develop self-reliant skills to get better grades, very specific. This is what you're gonna get on this channel. Now, a lot of brands think that by getting very narrow, you're excluding a lot of people, right? We're excluding more than half of the self-improvement community by narrowing on the students who wanna get better grades. But by doing that, we're really appealing to just those people. And that's why we built a cult-like following on that channel pretty quickly. That's the goal of content market fit.
So what you're saying is when you're switching from the word niche to the word transformation, you're implying that there is a person who is changing. When someone's watching your video, they want to know that this video was made for them specifically. If they look at this video is for self-improvement. I don't know if it's for me, but this video is for students to get better grades. That is a person who is changing.
I think this applies to every single channel. Really what we're trying to do with our strategy is to create a clear connection to our viewers. I heard this from Colin and Samir. The products that we make as creators is not actually the content. It's about building a community through that content. That's how business owners think. I was watching Alex Hormozi's $100 million money models book launch. And you know how he has the massive screen where all the Zoom faces are in there? I was looking intently behind it, and so many people were wearing his acquisition.com hat.
The hat. Yeah.
I guarantee if I saw someone walk down the street with that hat, I'd be like, dude, I know exactly whose content you're watching. That's the ultimate goal of building a successful brand off of YouTube, is to build that kind of community where everyone gets together and just really gets behind your mission, your values.
Yeah, obviously when you have a community, that's what brands want to pay for.
Now, once we have that, we can move on to step number 2 of strategy, which is unlocking your unfair advantages. There is a lot of competition on YouTube. There is over 115 million active YouTube channels. It doesn't matter which niche or which space you're in, it's pretty saturated, right? There's a lot of people there. So you have to figure out what is unique about you and what can you do better than anyone else. So the first pillar of your unfair advantage is your authority. What are you uniquely qualified to give to the world?
So one example of authority could be your credentials. Maybe you have a degree or a diploma, or you studied something for a very long time.
Yeah.
Or you have a lot of experience doing something. Or maybe you have a lot of experience helping other people achieve something.
Yeah. This is why I mean some of the biggest brands are people who are experts. But at the same time, authority doesn't just need to be like your credentials, like you said. It can just be that you're really good at something. And so I think a better question to think about what your authority is, because you don't have to be the top 1% expert to build a good brand, is what value can you bring for people? What is your unique skill set? Because nowadays we're seeing that degrees don't matter as much as they used to. And if you're just really good at something, then you can become an authority in that space.
So maybe you're really good at using Photoshop, or you're really good at building apps or something.
So authority is all about why should someone listen to you and what value can you bring to YouTube. The next A to think about is what access do you have that no one else has? So access are things like what resources do you have access to?
You mean money, right?
Yeah, a great example of that would be someone like Mr. Beast. He gives away millions of dollars sometimes in his videos. Obviously, he can do that because he has access to a lot of funding and sponsorships and actual money to give away to people. But if you don't, then you can't really rely on that as access. But there's a lot of other things in access that you could think about as well. Another really common one, especially for podcasts, is having access to people and networks. There's a podcast that we worked with called Open Residency, and he went out the gate interviewing 8 to 9 figure founders. Those people that he had access to is something that most people would never be able to get in a conversation with. And he was bringing it to YouTube. And I'm pretty sure that's like one of the main reasons why that podcast is doing so successfully right now.
And yeah, and to your point, those high-level guests bring with them their own access with their own audiences.
Yeah.
So it's like a double whammy.
Another interesting thing about access is how it can be unlocked from content market fit. So if, for example, one of the videos that I made on the first channel was about using Notion as a study tool. And because we had a partnership with Notion, I actually got access to Notion's engineering team. And I was able to ask them questions and help me build like this very custom Notion solution. That is something that other Notion creators might not have been able to do. And moving on to the last piece of your unfair advantage is your unique authenticity. I think authenticity is a word that's kind of thrown around really loosely on the internet, but it's probably the most important one of these three, especially today.
Because everyone has access to AI. And so what we're really lacking now is the trust factor, because people trust people. I think this word gets thrown around a lot. And so a lot of creators try, quote unquote, try to be more authentic and kind of force it. But I think the best way to be authentic is to just let it happen naturally. Like you are who you are. We're not trying to chase perfection, right? That's what the AI is trying to do. What we got to do is figure out what actually makes us imperfect, what are our quirks, our weaknesses, what makes us us, and just lean into that. That's how you'll be relatable to other people who share the same qualities.
Yeah, and I think there are a few really good questions that you can ask yourself to find what is your authenticity. So the first question is like, what kind of vibe are you trying to give off? I think that's a really important one for YouTube.
Yeah, when we were first starting out on YouTube, I was watching a lot of comedy channels, like stand-up comedy, RDC World. And so I was always trying to inject some kind of humor into our videos. And I think a lot of it just didn't land right or it came off really cringe. That was me forcing something that just wasn't authentically my character trait. But it was really easy for me to just break down really complex ideas, break down research, break down numbers and analyze them. And we could see from the comments that a lot of people actually appreciated my nerdiness. I was like, yeah, that comes natural and easy to me. So I leaned into that and our content started taking off.
I think you brought up a really, really important point right there too. Oftentimes, our perception of what our vibe is not actually the vibe that we give off. Maybe in my head, I think I'm like really funny and I'm really cool. But then when I make content, no one really thinks that way. So I think a really good exercise you can run through to also find out what's your vibe is, like you said, ask people. Ask people who are close to you. Like, what do your friends and your family members think about your personality? Do they think you're funny? Do they think you're nerdy or whatever? Or look at your comments or ask people in your community. The signals are there.
So I think the best way to figure out your authenticity is to just tell tons and tons of stories. Because when you tell your story, that's how people will learn about who you are and that's how they'll relate to you.
Yeah, I mean, people are molded by their story. They're molded by their experiences, right? The fact that I went to medical school and then I dropped out to become a YouTuber and then now we're doing this, like it really paints a picture of who I am.
And that's what AI doesn't have. It doesn't have memories, it doesn't have experiences, it hasn't lived through things. It can tell you any fact that you want in the world, but without that relatability, you're not going to be memorable.
And I'll add one more thing to finding your authenticity. And this is a word that I've been hearing thrown a lot more, and I think is super important, is what kind of taste do you have? what are the things that you like and what are the things that you obsess over. Looking at our first channel, Koi, like our taste is pretty clear in the content that we make. I mean, look at all of our thumbnails. There's this distinct point where we switched all of our thumbnails to this anime and video game style content. I think it'd be useful before we move on to the next step to run through an example of how we're thinking about all of the strategies so far for this channel right here, for Integrator Company. The content market fit that we're looking to achieve on this channel is to help the constrained creator become a creator CEO. We want to help them build the systems, we want to help them learn the ropes, we want to help them navigate this process of going full-time and becoming a professional. And so knowing that, like, what is our unfair advantage for why we can help these people?
Well, we were literally constrained creators who had to figure out how to build a creator company. And so we lived that transformation.
Yeah, so I guess our first piece of authority is that we succeeded in building a creator company.
And all the things that come with it, right? We've grown a YouTube channel to over 1 million subs. We operate multiple other channels with millions of subs. And we have built 7-figure businesses off of our YouTube content. And so that comes with a level of authority that we have to teach.
And what ties these two together is our authenticity. So first and foremost, we're brothers. So we already have like this deep connection with each other, and we've been doing this together for a long time. We're both medical doctors, so we love learning, we love teaching. We've studied for many years of our lives, and we can translate that with the analytics and data that we get to make better educational content. We love games a lot.
Video games, board games.
Yeah, as you can tell, maybe you can't see, but there's a whole bunch of games on this wall behind us, and we're planning to weave those into a lot of the content that we're making in the future.
And our specific style of learning and teaching is very visual. That's why you'll see a lot of frameworks and us drawing things out. And you can also see from our Koi channel, a lot of our videos teach in this way. And so that's why we have this whole chalkboard setup.
I've been inspired a lot by like Asian culture and fashion lately. And so this whole studio here was inspired by our taste for what we like, which is going to be different from another channel. And so combining all three of those things together, that is our unfair advantage for how we're building this channel. And I think a lot of other people would call this trifecta like the it factor, because this is what's going to separate you from all of the other channels that are out there. It's what's going to allow you to carve your own lane on YouTube. So let's move on to the next step here in strategy, which we call finding your brand positioning. So the wrong way to build a brand on YouTube is to try to blend in with everybody else. Every single niche is saturated, and it's only going to get more and more saturated. And it might feel like it's really hard to stand out, but it's actually a lot simpler than you might expect. Let me ask you a question. Who is your favorite DJ?
That is a loaded question.
You probably have a lot, right?
I don't have a single favorite, but I mean, I like Daft Punk, I like SG Lewis, Snake Hips, Odessa.
Great taste. I love all those too. Yeah, okay. But if I was to say, who's your favorite DJ from France then?
That would be Daft Punk, because they're the only ones from France, right?
The list you just said, yeah. You see what I'm getting at here?
Yeah.
You can just keep narrowing it down. So I could say, who's your favorite male DJs? Who's your favorite male duo DJs from France? The point I'm trying to get at is that our brain remembers things in categories like that. It's a lot harder to compete against who are all the best DJs in the world versus, like the person I remember is the best duo that's male and from France is Daft Punk. And so that is actually a secret to standing out online.
The smartest strategy for your brand is to make it easy for people to categorize you.
Let's do an example for YouTube channels. Let's do it for podcasts, because I know podcasts are super popular right now. So let's say that we want to be the #1 best podcast in the world. You're competing against a lot of podcast channels. If this was a pond, this is a big pond. There's a lot of podcasts in this pond that you're competing with. So what are ways that we're creating more categorizations?
Well, what type of podcast?
So the topic.
We can talk about YouTube creators.
Sure, like creator education. So it's probably a smaller one though, because not a lot of people are already there.
Not a lot of podcasts talk about creators.
So what's another categorization that we can get?
Ours has 2 hosts.
It's a really good one. There's a few others I can think of that have as well, but let's try those several here. And as we're doing this, like if you've already done these 2 exercises, it's a lot easier to just start plugging and chugging like your unique access, your advantages, your authenticity into the different categories that you want to bring out. But let's keep going down this vein. So there's 2 hosts.
How many podcasts for creators with 2 hosts where the hosts are actually brothers or the hosts are actually doctors?
Okay, so yeah,
take your pick.
So we're getting even more fine with both of those. Exactly. I think I missed two of them didn't overlap.
Yeah.
But you get the idea here.
It should be overlapping somewhere. So the whole point here is that with every unfair advantage that you add here, you're basically stacking them. The overlap is the actual pond that you're competing in. So this tiny area of overlap here is where we're actually competing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't name any other podcasts for YouTube creators with two hosts that are brothers and doctors that is also competing with us in this pond.
So all the work that we've done so far with customer market fit and finding out unfair advantages, we're mapping it out now to figure out what is that little pond that we're actually fishing in.
And so this is the pond that you're competing in, right? But how do you differentiate yourself?
But the things that we just talked about are very shallow. It's like, obviously you can see two brothers, we're doctors, like on paper, those are the things that separate us from someone else. But what makes brands like really, really memorable is the layer deeper. What is their philosophy? Like, what is their stance on things? Because in a world, like I said, of where AI is everywhere, it's really easy to just look something up, but it's harder to get an opinion. And I think that is like your most powerful differentiator. Someone who does a really good job of this is Ryan Trahan. Like if you watch Trahan's videos, not only does he have masterful storytelling, but he does a really good job of like showing us how his brain works in videos. Like he will connect the dots to random books he's read or movies or like historical events. I don't know how he's so good at connecting to like random historical events. He probably does some research, but like that's his perspective of the world. We think of someone like Andrew Huberman on the opposite extreme of that. Super academic guy. His worldview is very science-based, obviously. So how would you think about differentiating your brand?
From all these competitors, right? So the way that I would differentiate is to first ask, what are we trying to differentiate from? So think about what we just discussed here, right? Of all the podcasts that are talking about YouTubers and creators that are hosted by two people, then right when we got down to that point, we instantly knew, like, we all know we're talking about Colin Samir, right?
Yeah.
So how are we differentiating ourselves from Colin and Samir? That's how we started thinking about, oh, we're brothers, but they're not.
Yeah.
And we're doctors, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the theme here, is that what are people doing in the space and how do you differentiate from that? How do you get contrast from that? And the best way to start is to obviously look at your advantages. Does that give you an idea on how to contrast with what's going on? But if you think about everything, all the videos here as like a conversation that's going on, everyone's contributing to the same conversation, but everyone has their own opinions about the conversation. Colin and Samir might have their own opinions about the creator economy, and so do we. Our opinions is what differentiates us. And people know this, right? That's why controversial topics do so well. That's why contradictory things do so well, is because it's different from the norm. Now, I'm not saying that you should just go in there and just stir up controversy just for the sake of getting views and attention. I mean, I guess you should. But if it doesn't align with who you are, it doesn't align with your credentials, it doesn't align with your worldly experiences, it doesn't align with your values, then you're going to come off as fake. People are going to see right through that. So yes, join the conversation. These are your competitors, but they're also actually your friends. Like, you're having a conversation with them. What do you bring? How is it different? And why are you the only person that can say that?
Yeah, I love that you use that word, contribute, because I think that's what we do as creators. YouTube is going to be around for a long time. There's like millions and millions and millions of hours of footage that's uploaded to YouTube. And the brands have to compete against that. So if you want to make your mark, you need to contribute something unique, something valuable. And the easiest way to be original is to just be yourself. I'll bring back the music example that we used initially to come up with this. I like house music a lot. I don't just listen to like Fred again, you know? I listen to a lot of different house DJs on rotation, because they all have like their own unique style and flavor and like build-ups and drops. And like, that's why also when, you know, musicians do shows, they have openers, or like a festival will have a lineup, because they know that like this is a collection of voices that's contributing to the space that everyone's going to love and appreciate. So hopefully, you know, like if we're talking about Colin and Samir, we would love to be in the orbit of people who also like Colin and Samir, because we love Colin and Samir, but we have a different take on things. And so hopefully people would enjoy our perspective as well.
And that's a good point. You talk about like the music festivals bringing together everyone from the same genres. Just because you listen to one artist doesn't mean that you're not going to listen to the other ones.
Yeah.
It's actually the complete opposite, right? If you listen to one artist in this genre, you're more likely to enjoy the other artists in that genre too. So people who watch Colin and Samir, they are more likely to enjoy John Yushai. They are probably more likely to enjoy our thing
creator
too.
company. Yeah. Hopefully.
So because we're all in the same conversation together.
One more thing about the music analogy is that when I find two artists that I really, really like, and then they collab.
Oh yeah, the collab.
Oh man, I love that. This is the opportunity you have. It's not just about, like you said, you're not trying to outcompete everyone. You're seeing how you can all contribute and grow together. Because usually brands that do well are the ones that stick together. And that's the way you're gonna succeed.
YouTube knows this. That's why they're rolling out the channel collabs, right? Mr. Beast and Mark Rober posting the same video. We've already talked about market strategy. We talked about founder strategy, talked about competitor strategy. Now it's content strategy. But to actually formulate a content strategy, you first needed all these pieces.
So talking about content strategy now, this is probably the question that I've been asked the most from creators, both beginners and even very experienced creators. Some of the clients we worked with have millions of subscribers, and they're still asking the question of what should my content strategy be? And when someone asks about content strategy, I think it usually breaks down into two questions. What kind of content should I make? And how often should I be making that content?
I mean, we are still asking this question.
Every day, every day.
And I think the point is that you can never stop asking this question. The moment you stop asking this question is when your channel starts to die.
So let's start with the first question I just asked. What kind of content should you make?
So the whole game of YouTube is to make content and to not stop making content. And so you think about the biggest media companies out there, like television shows like The Simpsons or The Office. They figured out how to churn out episode after episode, keeping the same level of quality and same level of engagement. And the reason is because they used a format.
So formats is a very hot topic now in YouTube. And it's the way that I think constrained creators need to start thinking about their content strategy to play for the long haul. So let's break down what actually is a content format.
A format is basically a repeatable structure for your videos.
What are some examples of formats, just so we have some context?
For example, one of my favorite creators, Johnny Harris, he's got the documentary format. Or another favorite of mine is RDC World. They do skits all the time. Even like Mr. Beast, for example, he runs multiple formats. So you don't have to have just one. He does, I survived in name super dangerous situation, $1 versus $1 million house. He does games, last one to leave the circle.
I mean, a creator that pops up on my feed a lot, then I watch a lot, is Asmongold. He does a lot of like reaction content. I think his takes are just really funny. He's really, really genuine in the way that he delivers it.
Authentic.
Yeah, very authentic. I would say Ali Abdal has really good listicles. Lately, he's been doing a lot of walkthroughs as well, but listicles are a big one that he does. Of course, you can't forget all the big podcasts out there. I think interviews itself is a good format. Diary of a CEO, Chris Williamson, there are almost endless formats that you can do because you can always combine different ones depending on what your unfair advantages are and what's missing in the competitor landscape. So we could sit here all day and just like remix and come up with all these different formats that we could try, but you definitely shouldn't do every single format. And we found that a lot because we've tried a whole bunch of different formats on our channel and not all of them were a good fit for the brand that we wanted to build. And that's why we created this framework here. It's another 3-step framework because we love threes.
The first one here is cost. And there's actually 2 components to cost. The first one is the financial cost. How much money does it cost to make one of your videos?
Yeah.
If you're a channel that makes only animation videos, like Hertzgesagt, they have to pay for animators, which are usually more expensive than the average video editor. So they're looking at way higher costs.
Another example would be if you do travel vlogs and you want to go do a vlog in Paris and you live in the US, you're going to have to pay for a flight to go to Paris and then pay for hotels and all that stuff too. Or if you do food vlogs, you're gonna have to pay for a lot of food when you go out there. Sometimes there's cost of actually getting the goods that you wanna showcase in your videos. On our first channel, like there was a time when we would just buy a whole bunch of props. I mean, there's some sitting on this shelf over here. We wanted to buy these things to basically reenact skits in our videos.
There was another video where we wanted to do an iPad review. Right? An iPad Air versus iPad Pro. And so we went out and we bought the iPads to review them. And I remember buying them like in Hawaii when I was on vacation because like the tax was low or something.
It's funny how obvious cost is, but a lot of people don't think about it when they're building their channels. Like I was on a sales call about a week ago and I was talking to this creator and he wanted to start a second channel about tech reviews. Like he wanted to be the next MKBHD. He literally said to me, I want to become the next Marquez Brownlee. And I was like, okay, well, you know what he does? He reviews like tech products. And I was like, can you afford those? He's like, well, I'm a student. I'm like, how do you plan to get all the iPads and the newest gear to review if you don't have the money? And he was like, oh, I guess I didn't really think about that. I was like, well, I mean, so it's important to think about like what cost can you afford for the channel that you want right now? Maybe product reviews shouldn't be the format for now. Maybe you should focus on explainers first to get into the tech community and then eventually get sponsorships that can allow him to do those reviews.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that story because some people may not have the financial resources to afford their cost, but there are some creators who do have the resources, but they don't want to spend it. When we first started off on YouTube, I spent all my time editing for however many 10, 20 hours per video because I didn't want to hire a video editor. And I was like, videos are free to make, right? I don't have to spend a single dime, but I actually spent hours. And had I, for example, just taken extra shifts at the hospital and used that money to pay for a video editor, then I would have made way more videos. One extra shift would have paid for like 3 videos. So the first component of costs is financial, but the second component is also time. Obviously, time is money. Right. Money is time. And zooming out, just thinking about business in general, business is just a race against time.
That's probably one of the first and most important lessons that I learned as an entrepreneur with you. Like we're lucky that there's 2 of us co-founding our business, but even that, we were able to move twice as fast as a solo founder. But eventually we hit a point where you only had 24 hours in a day. I only had 24 hours in a day. We both had to sleep, at least 5 or 6 hours a day. When you were in the hospital, obviously less.
We're still working.
And we're still working. But you run out of time. And so the easiest way to get more time is to work with more people. And we'll talk about all those systems and offloading and delegating later on in this course. But this is a very key thing to understand is the cost is both financial and time investment.
Yeah, a big component of time is not just your time, but other people's time. So if your video requires multiple editors, multiple animators, multiple designers, multiple characters, then that's all people's time that you have to pay for. One of the ultimate examples is Mr. Beast. He takes both of the costs and he just pulls it to the extreme. He will give away millions of dollars in a single video. That's already some cost, in addition to hiring an entire camera crew, in addition to building out extravagant sets, like he built like an entire chocolate factory or something. And he just got tons of editors working around the clock.
And also the participants.
And the participants, like having to manage and organize all those people's time. So he's mastered cost. So the next one here is creativity, or we call it creative runway. I think of all 3, this is probably the only one that people consider. Like when you think about, I want to start a YouTube channel, the first thing they think about is what ideas am I going to make videos about?
Arguably is also the most important one. And a media business runs on the ideas that you can come up with. So if you don't have ideas, then you can't make any content. A lot of creators think about creative runway wrong. And it has to do with the way that the YouTube algorithm works. On our first channel, Koi, I made a video about doing a 7-day dopamine detox challenge. It was a really fun video to make, but it was probably one of the most challenging videos I've ever made because I spent 7 days to make this video. I didn't have my phone to make that video as well. The whole dopamine detox is you can't use your phone and you can't watch TV and use any social media or anything like that. That video performed really well. And when you give signals to the YouTube algorithm that something does really well, like your audience responds to it, the smartest thing you can do to build momentum is to keep doing that thing over and over and over, right? That's why we want to come up with a format. But what we said earlier, formats need to be repeatable. And for me, there just was not going to be repeatable. Like I did not have more challenge ideas in my bank to keep doing more and more challenges.
The way that I always like to explain creative runway is by using the example of podcasts, because the podcast is always an interview format, but you just swap out the guests. So can you think of multiple guests that you would want to bring on your show? And if you're struggling to think of any guests at all, then that's probably not a repeatable format for you. And I think a very simple exercise to do here is to just ask yourself, can you think of 100 different ideas within this format?
Yeah, because the reality is you're not going to make every single idea that you have. And so you want to have a lot of ideas so that you can pick and choose the best ones. I think we shoot for trying to brainstorm at least 10 ideas, I would say a day, right?
I mean, if you're struggling to come up with ideas, then maybe that's not the format you should be doing right now.
I like how you said right now too, because your channel might grow. And if your business grows, you might suddenly unlock more money, more resources, more talent to actually make those ideas happen. So let's move on to the last C.
This C is probably the one that people think about the least, and it's compatibility. Are the videos that you're making actually compatible with you as a creator? When I was still working full-time as a doctor, I tried making day in the life of a doctor videos. And at the time, a lot of people were doing day in the life of whatever, doctor, day in the life of a lawyer, of an engineer. So it was trending at the time, but I quickly found out that that format was just not compatible with my life. Like one of those videos would take so much time, and like being a night doctor, I'd have to like stay up just to shoot the videos. It was exhausting. It was time consuming. I mean, I don't regret doing it, but I would not do any more of those.
That reminds me of that one saying that I remember hearing a lot a few years ago. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. I think that sums up compatibility, right? Like if you don't have a, ooh, I want to do this.
The urge.
Yeah. Like the itch as a creator to make something constantly for this format, are you going to see yourself doing it repeatedly for a long time? The theme of all of the strategy here is, can you do this consistently? Can you do this for the long run? And if you're not in it, it's going to be really hard to fake it. And if you do fake it, it's going to be hard to fake it well. But I think there's another side of compatibility that I discovered for myself. So a few years ago, I did this video where I reacted to a breatharian because I was really into reaction content at the time. I think I just discovered like Tiny Meat Gang, Asmongold, and I was like, oh, this is so funny. Like I could probably do that. And so I gave it a shot, ended up not really being able to, like, it just didn't land, right? Like it just wasn't entertaining at all. I think compatibility also comes down to, is it compatible with your skill set and compatible with your advantages? Like, I don't think I'm particularly funny. Me like trying to make fun of someone's content like that, it just didn't come off right, you know? And so I think that's like a very big mindset shift that I had to have. The type of content that you like to consume as a creator or like you like watching, that content should not necessarily be your format. And I think it's so easy because some people make amazing content out there and you can try really hard and be like, oh, I want to make content just like that. Just because you want to make something, like, does it actually fit these 3 C's?
You'd be surprised at the amount of skill that it requires to do a reaction format.
I mean, I definitely don't have it, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can spend time practicing and training it up if you wanted to do that. But yeah, you didn't have the skill set at the time. There's a lot of prep work that goes into it. Like sometimes like they like watch it first so they can kind of prime themselves. Then they rewatch and react. Like it's a whole skill set. So once you've thought about all 3 of these criteria, then you have found a format that you want to try. So this is a guess, right? This is a hypothesis. The only way to know if this format actually fits you is you just have to make the videos.
And that actually is a great segue into the second piece of content strategy, which is how often should you make videos? What we call that is the cadence of your posting schedule. And there's obviously a lot of debate from a lot of people about how often you should post. My belief, having done this for a long time, is that the best posting cadence is the one that you can do consistently. Because again, this whole game of business on YouTube, it's a long game. And the thing that we're optimizing for in our strategy is against burnout, against quitting, against giving up, right? Winning in business just means continuing to play the game of business. That being said though, it is important to set goals. And I think one of the best places to get examples from is to look at where YouTube is going, which is Hollywood, right? Most shows in Hollywood space air weekly at the same time because a lot of people now watch their content on television screens. And so creating a habit of when your audience is going to see your content at the same time, the same place, hopefully every single week, you're going to build that connection faster. You're going to build that loyalty faster, and you're going to build like the habit of showing up for your content.
It could be 1 video per week. It could be 1 video per month. It could be 1 video per day.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we've seen it work in all those cases, but as long as you're able to sustain it, that's the important part.
So if you're watching this video, odds are you already make content. You already have some kind of posting cadence, right? But whenever you're coming up with a new strategy, build up a buffer of content first. What could be useful is to keep doing a regular posting schedule, but make a few videos in this new format and then see how long it takes to make that video. And can you get a backlog of those videos before you start posting them consistently?
So when we teach formats, a lot of creators will ask, what if I am locked into this format? Like I don't want to be making this format forever. And you got to remember that you can have multiple formats on your channel. Like think of Mr. Beast or Dude Perfect or Jubilee. And the only way to discover new formats for your channel is to constantly be experimenting, because the algorithm is changing all the time, right? The meta is changing all the time. And if you're a business or a channel that cannot adapt or evolve with your formats, you're going to fall behind.
I think the biggest changes that have happened over the past few years is from YouTube, we got shorts. I mean, that was a huge one. That didn't exist a couple years ago. And then when that came, a lot of creators started adopting shorter form content. Also, a few years ago, we saw like this big rise, which has been widely known as like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, where everything got really, really fast paced and the cuts got really fast. And like there was a lot of sound effects and things just popping all on the screen, what people call now like retention editing. A few years later, people kind of got bored of that. And now things are starting to slow down a little bit. And so all those like meta changes that we're talking about, it influences the type of format that you should make. Like maybe like slower sit down podcasts weren't as popular a few years ago. So that wouldn't be the format that you're trying to pursue, but now it might be. This is really good news because a lot of creators like myself, we like to experiment. We like to try different things. I would get bored out of my mind making the same thing every single week for 5 years in a row. And I think there's actually a really, really good sweet spot that you can hit to weigh how much of this should I keep doing and how much new stuff should I try. It's a framework called exploitation versus exploration. If you found a format that works, you want to exploit it. You want to milk it for everything it has and just keep doing it. Like, if it's working, it's working. Like, why would you stop if it's working? Mission Impossible, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's probably gonna be 10 of those. Fast and Furious, just keep doing it if it's working. But if you every now and then try something different, and that's where the experimentation side comes from. So I really love this one principle that kind of seems to seep its way into every industry, which is the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, do what works. Keep hammering in and exploiting the format that works. 20% of the time, try something new. Try a new format hypothesis. Maybe it'll be, a vlog or a behind the scenes shoot. And for the times you explore, just remove any expectation of success. Like, I think it's really important for businesses to have, if you can afford it, obviously, like a special projects fund or like an R&D department, where you just get to just try things for the sake of trying things. The 80-20 just makes sure that the business is still going to keep going. Not all the formats that you try are going to land, right? But eventually one will land. And if it does, then you can add it to your rotation of regular formats.
That means if you post 4 videos per month, then 3 videos can be exploitative of your normal format. And then 1 video can be experimental.
Exactly.
That's like 75%.
Close enough to 80-20.
Yeah, okay.
So here's an example of how we did this for our first channel. Our main bread and butter format that we were exploiting really hard when we were growing fast was the explainer format. We had this series that did really well called the Ultimate Study Skills Series, where you and I would get together, we would break down a learning concept and help students apply it to their grades. But at the same time, every month or so, we would throw in a random video format just to try it out. I remember you did one about like dating and relationships where you did a book review.
Don't think that did very well.
And it was an experiment, It was a good one. One format though did work and I did really enjoy doing it. I did a video also about dopamine detox, about my protocol for dopamine detox. That was different from our typical like, let's break down a concept and show you how to do it. This was like a full guide walkthrough. And that video completely blew up and went viral. And so what we were able to do once we created that new format for our channel, we added it to the roster. And then I followed up with a procrastination protocol video, then a deep work protocol video. And then we had 2 different formats running on our channel that we can just come back to and know that, our audience really does like this. And it was cost effective. We had creative runway for it and it was very compatible. And so now we have 2 of these triangles for our channel. And that just came from doing exploration. And so as your channel grows, one of the smartest things for your strategy is to see how many of these little formats can you pick up? How many of these little formats can you have on your channel that people are going to remember you for and come back to watch? So the whole goal of our strategy is to create a portfolio of content that we can just keep coming back to, right? Like every single format gets added to, this is what this brand stands for. This is the content that you're going to get served when you come to this channel.
So now you have a portfolio full of tested formats, but what does a strong portfolio actually do for you?
I think this all ties together everything that we have on the board here. The whole goal of our content strategy overall is to build trust with our viewers. We want to make sure that the audience is getting exactly the kind of content that they love watching. Someone sees your video pop up on their home feed, and they already know before clicking it, they can trust that they're gonna experience the same thing. Whether that's laughter, if it's a comedy channel, whether that's some deep value, if it's educational, whether that's to feel inspired, whatever you're offering in your portfolio, they know that they're gonna get something good. And this is how traditional businesses work. If I go to In-N-Out Burger, one of my favorite burger spots in California, and I order a double, I already know how it's gonna taste, how it's gonna look like, and exactly how it's gonna be handed to me at the drive-thru. And I associate such good tasting burger with that place. And we're trying to build that same thing for our content. Yeah, we're gonna move on to section 2 now, which is storytelling, which is my favorite section here. So I think there is a difference between a good video and then a great video, or I wanna put an incredible video. Most videos on YouTube are bad. And that's why they never get any views, they never get any attention. A lot of videos are good, but it's the incredible videos that really grow your channel. When you think of like what a good YouTube video is, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so the first video that pops into my head, I recently saw from the channel Veritasium. And to be honest, I don't really remember what the title of the video was. I don't even remember what the topic of the video was. Actually, no, it was about game theory. But yeah, I don't really remember anything else, but I do remember the way that it made me feel. And it moved me so much that I like instantly shared it with you.
Yeah, I think you sent me that video. You texted it to me. And that's exactly what I think separates a good video from an incredible video. So when someone really likes something, you want to do something with it, right? So I think the first thing that someone would probably do is they would like the video. Maybe you would subscribe to the channel. I don't know if you're subscribed to Veritasium.
Subscribed.
You've been subscribed, right? The next step would be to comment. I think what really makes something incredible though, when you get to this step over here, is what you did with me, which is sharing the video. A video that you have to share with someone because it's so good, because it reminded you of that person. If we can go through our text message chat, we send each other a lot of videos. We also send our team a lot of videos. Remember that private equity video that came out recently? Something about that video, it was so interesting to me. And I was like, oh, I can already think of people that would find this interesting and had to share it. If someone wants to spread it, you know, like wildfire, that's what makes something incredible.
Why is sharing the ultimate action to take? Well, I had a business coach tell me this quote that has stuck with me for forever, basically. So what is the goal of marketing? Do you know this quote? The goal of marketing is to make marketing extinct. So if you do marketing so well, you don't need to market anymore. The best companies that will hold the #1 spot in any category, they don't really need to, throw ads at you because people just spread their brand by word of mouth. Whether it's just with their close circle of friends, at the dinner table, whenever anyone asks for a question or recommendation, that is the ultimate goal, I think, of marketing with YouTube videos. It's basically growing without needing an algorithm. Right? An algorithm is good to give you that spark, that initial traction, but the algorithm can only go so far.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why sharing is so important. So for most videos on YouTube, when you post a video, that video lives on YouTube as an isolated video, right? If no one shares it or it doesn't pick up traction, then this video is just gonna live by itself. But videos that get shared, they have this effect to it. This video was really good and it was shared to maybe 2 of your friends. Maybe you send it to like me and you send it to someone else. If those people also liked it, then they're gonna share it to more people, obviously, right? And for videos that are really good, that get people to subscribe, comment, share, it creates this ripple effect for your content. And this is how videos can actually escape the algorithm. Because like you said, if I'm sharing this video at the dinner table, or if someone asks me, what's the best thing you watched recently? And I bring up this video, and then that person goes to watch it, this is just spreading like crazy. So you've extended the shelf life of your video and you've expanded its discoverability outside of just relying on an algorithm. It just shows like the compounding effects that an incredible video can have versus a good video. Because you can make 10 good videos, right? Or a bunch of good videos, but if they all live by themselves, they're only gonna grow your channel by a little bit. But if you make one incredible video and then it gets shared, it can basically create the same effect that 10 or more videos could have. And that's why it's so important to make really high quality videos. Because the more you share something, and the more it lives by spreading word of mouth, or think about things that have survived generations. There are things that are passed down from parents to kids, things that are written in books that are shared over and over again, people that come back to content because it was so good. One of the movies that we've watched maybe 10 times growing up, maybe more.
Lord of the Rings.
We watched Lord of the Rings every year. We made a marathon out of it because we loved it. And we talk about it all the time. We know every quote from that movie.
Yeah.
And that's just something that we just keep coming back to over and over and over. And you can make incredible content that does that. That just has this long shelf life and it serves so much purpose because it's memorable. I think that's the one word in my mind that encompasses all of this. If we're talking about brands that last, that is the ultimate goal of your brand. So my point is, if you can make a video that gets people to like, sub, comment, and hopefully share your content, that is how you make your content memorable. The question is, can we make content that is memorable? Can we do that? And the answer is obviously yes, because we can already name creators who have made memorable content. There are some videos on YouTube that are just super iconic. For example, like Mr. Beast's Squid Game. That will be a video that will be remembered throughout history as like one of the greatest spectacles of all time. There are a lot of things that contributed to making that video successful. Another example would be Alex Hormozi's latest book launch, where he broke the Guinness World Record of how many book sales in a day or something. That 3-day straight live stream will be remembered forever. It's just doing things that are incredible. So if you want to make incredible content that actually grows your channel, then you have to make content that is memorable. And this is where I think our love for like neuroscience and medicine comes in, because there's a science to memory that we can steal to make better content. And this is a big simplification of how memory formation works, but there are 3 things that make something really memorable. First is emotion. There's this famous quote about emotion. People don't remember what you said, they remember how you make them feel.
That's literally the Veritasium video.
Exactly.
Like, I don't even remember what you said in that video.
You remember it being really good, right?
How it made me feel.
That's for me with a lot of books. I read a lot of books and I'm like, I get to the end of it, I'm like, that was a really good book. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I can't recall a thing I read from that book. I can't remember a single sentence. I can't remember
recommend it to everybody.
But I'll recommend it because it made me feel really good. Maybe getting too far away, but this is also why people bond over very stressful experiences, like trauma bonding. If you have a shared emotional experience about something and you find someone else who has a similar one, that is a way to really connect together. Can your videos create emotion in people? Both positive and negative emotions, right? Sad, fear, joy, excitement. Any emotion that you can stir up in someone is going to be more memorable.
Yeah, sure. And since we're nerds here, looking at the brain, the memory is associated with the hippocampus. Basically, I guess it's better seen here, this little structure right here. And emotion is processed partly by the amygdala. And so there are 2 structures that are just very close to each other in the brain. So that's why like when you have strong emotional reactions to something, it gets processed and ingrained in your memory.
So the second thing that makes something very memorable are patterns. You ever heard the term deja vu?
Yeah, like I've seen something before.
You've seen something before, or like, oh wait, I remember being in this situation before. The brain has memory of things, like similar situations, similar ideas, similar places that you've been. And so a good way to make something memorable is to create a very familiar experience with something. This is why, if you look at Hollywood movies, for example, almost every single rom-com that ever came out from like the 90s till I think present day, it always follows the exact same pattern of the video. Boy meets girl, they have really great chemistry, there's a falling out, they get back together, happy ending, right? It's like the same pattern that goes through. Or something like the hero's journey. Someone goes out on a quest, they're from state A, they go on a quest, they meet a mentor, then they have some big climax, and then they change as a character by the end of it. These are repeatable patterns that are used over and over in videos, in content, and movies that people remember.
That's why we harp so much on formats, right? Because formats are basically repeatable patterns or repeatable structures that you use for your videos. So when it comes to patterns applied to YouTube, you often hear sayings like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, or one I heard more recently from, I think it was John Yushai. He said the Dr. Mike-ification of YouTube now. So some kind of expert giving their takes on domain knowledge, and then people seeing it work. So now you're seeing lawyers and accountants and engineers and everybody building their personal brand, sharing their knowledge.
Yeah, I think another great example of a pattern would be how Colin and Samir have done it. Patterns can be something even as small as like thumbnails. Like after they did the
yellow.
I mean, they obviously weren't the first person to use yellow in thumbnails and stuff, but it was a very specific style of like podcast person's face, text, and like bolded color behind it. And then we just started seeing a lot of other podcast channels imitate this idea. And then even other personal brands imitate this idea. I can recognize this pattern that this is probably going to be an interview or a podcast of some sort, right? Like before I click on the video, I already have that expectation.
But you obviously can't just go around copying people's videos, right? Or copying people's thumbnails.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let people do that, but it's not gonna be a way to be memorable because you're always gonna be associated with the number one. You'll be the second person to get there, which is never as great as being the first person to get there. And so that actually takes us to the last piece of being memorable, which is a little paradoxical to this one, but it is what differentiates you? Because the third thing that we remember is novelty. So the brain remembers new experiences. This is personally why I think as we get older, things start to be less magical, right? Like how many times have you gone to Disneyland now?
Can't even count.
Exactly, but like
Season pass.
you don't have that same like, wow, amazing feeling as you did, or now as probably your daughter does when she goes there, right?
That's honestly why we go, because she's seeing things for the first time. And so we get to relive the novelty through her.
Nice.
But I mean, everything else, I've already been on these rides like a dozen times, so.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like new and exciting anymore.
So I mean, I see the paradox here is like novelty is new, patterns is familiarity, but you have to combine the two, right? They work together.
Yes.
It's what I would call remixing.
Yeah, so this is where I would kind of bring back the music analogy that we've been using so much. Music does this incredible job of that, which you said is making remixes of things. So a popular song is a pattern. You recognize that pattern. But the remix is adding a different twist on it. Maybe a different drum beat, maybe a faster pace, maybe they slowed it down. And that's what's gonna make that new piece of content or that new piece of art memorable. And this is how we're seeing a lot of creators blow up their own channels because they're remixing patterns from a lot of different creators. You know, you're not just copying everything from Colin and Samir or everything from Mr. Beast. You're picking and choosing, these are the patterns that worked across a lot of different spaces. And how can I remix them into something that's my own? So for your videos, if you can create emotions, if you can copy similar patterns that people recognize while also injecting your own new novel twist to it, you are gonna make content that is incredibly memorable. Now, it might seem like a lot of work, right? But there's one thing you can do in all your videos that makes this super, super easy. And it is to tell stories. Because in an age of AI now, and in a world of robots where everyone's just using ChatGPT to write scripts, we're seeing everyone copying each other's personal brands, copying each other's design formats, even copy each other's like editing style. But the only thing that's gonna actually make you stand out and become memorable is your story. And I think that's something that all channels, if you wanna build a brand, you have to tell your story, like your brand story.
So for me, an example that sticks out is Ali Abdaal. He likes to tell a story about how he was a doctor, started making YouTube videos, and then became a YouTuber. He quit medicine for YouTube. And that's a story that really stuck with us because that's literally our story too. There's two of us that did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think you shared that video with me. Like the video where he's talking about why he quit medicine.
Obviously, not everybody is a doctor who quit to become a YouTuber, but everyone can relate to the idea of spending all of your life working towards something only to throw it away to do something else that most people tell you not to do. A lot of people can relate to that.
But to your point as well, because we were doctors who also decided to leave for YouTube, it created a much stronger emotion when I watched that video. Because I had always doubted myself, like, is this a good idea? But seeing someone else do it and then talk about it, I felt like he gets it. He has experienced the exact same thing I did. There's also a mistake that a lot of people have with storytelling, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why social media can be seen as very fake. I think one of the strongest ways to do storytelling is to not only share wins and things that you've done well, but also to share your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses. For example, one of the most successful videos on our other channel, Mike and Maddie, was a story that I just sat down and I just talked about how we stopped posting on our 1.3 million subscriber YouTube channel. And I was sharing all of the mess ups and the mistakes that we made from that channel and how we built a sloppy business and how things weren't going well and how we almost lost everything. But it was me sharing that like vulnerable side of me that created this right here. Like a lot of people liked it. A lot of people commented on that video. I got DMs from a lot of other creators and friends who were like, I was so inspired by that story, like you're being so vulnerable. People relate to your flaws more than your success.
Obviously, storytelling is an art form, but it's also got a science to it, right? I mean, we just covered a bunch of science of storytelling. If you were to ask me several years ago, storytelling is something that's big, grand, like epic, like in a movie. Like there's like a start, there's a finish, and there's like acts 1, 2, and 3, and
like Frodo taking the ring.
They go on a massive journey and
to Mordor.
Yeah, or like on YouTube, it would be like giant epic games or challenges or vlogs.
Yeah, I think that is probably what a lot of people think how to tell stories would be that way. But storytelling is something that can be and should be applied to any niche that you're in. Whether you make entertainment content, whether you're doing educational content like we're doing. This is, by all means, an educational video, what we're doing right now. But how many stories have we told already up to this point? We've told so many stories because stories are what gets people to understand something. And I actually think it's more important to tell stories when you're educating, because if you want someone to walk away and use the knowledge that you gave them, like weeks, months, or years later down the line, it has to be memorable. You can't take action on something if you don't remember what it was. So next what we're gonna do is break down the step-by-step process of how to tell good stories on YouTube. When we're thinking about YouTube videos, the beginning of the story actually starts before you even make the video. It starts at the idea, because everything lives downstream from an idea. An idea leads to a good title thumbnail, which leads to a good script of the video, which then leads to a good edit. And you have to go in that order. It's really important you go in that order. You have to start from the top and then go down through the process. So for example, when I was in medical school, I just really wanted to make a vlog. Day in the lives were very popular. And I was like, I'm just gonna bring my camera with me to the hospital. And I was on like psychiatry rotation, I think. And I'm just gonna start making content. And I got a whole bunch of footage. I remember I got like 2 days worth of content. I just gave it to you.
Oh yeah.
I was like, here you go. Like
not fun.
He was like, here you go. Like here's all this footage. Just turn this into a video for me. How long did it take you to put that together?
I don't remember. It's just days.
Like there was no story involved. It was just random footage.
Yeah.
Like me getting coffee, me walking around the hospital, stuff like that. Like we had to go backwards and try to figure out, okay, what's the title of this video gonna be? We tried to come up with the title like 5 minutes before we uploaded it. The consequences of that obviously is that the video didn't perform well. But if you work on a team, like with an editor, with a designer, you have to pay people to make that video. You had to pay with hours of your time to sift through the footage and try to piece something together that was in essence just garbage, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you didn't even give me an idea to work with.
You have to think about this as a business. Businesses have costs. They have expenses. And you're gonna pay someone to make your videos. And so you want them to actually perform well.
In our case, it was a single video that, okay, it didn't do well, it flopped, we move on to the next. But if you zoom out and think about like a multi-million-dollar production or something, or like a movie, the idea of turning Disney masterpieces into live action movies, maybe it's not that great of an idea, but then to throw millions of dollars behind it and, you know, hours of people's time, and if it doesn't do well, then you can see the amount of backlash or the amount of negative impact it can have on a brand.
You bring up a really good point there. A bad video and a bad idea can do more damage to your brand than just like, oh, we paid a whole bunch of money for it. Like that's gonna live on the internet forever. And people will also remember that as a bad experience. There is an argument that like all press is good press, right? But overall, like this is your brand reputation on the line. So you don't want to put out bad stuff.
So what this means is basically you want to spend most of your time on the idea. Like you're thinking about the 80-20 principle. 80% of your results will come from the idea.
And we're not just talking about spending all of your time on one idea. I think there is a better strategy. So there's this famous study from a ceramics teacher. The ceramics teacher split his class up into 2 groups, and they were all supposed to make clay pots. So one of the groups was graded on the total weight of the pots they made. So how many could they make? And it was put on a scale. The other group was graded on one perfect pot, like the most beautiful looking pot. And what he found was all of the best pots came from the first group that focused on making as many as they could. And the reason is because they got reps in. They practiced more and they made more pots so that they improved their skills a lot faster. Whereas the other group got stuck in analysis paralysis, in perfectionism. And we all know that perfectionism is like the bane of productivity. Getting trapped in your head, like trying to make things perfect, not publishing, not getting your ideas out there, and getting stuck in the same place. You can't make progress unless you take action and keep moving things forward. So instead of just trying to like polish this one idea that might not be that great, just have a lot of ideas. And the more you get out there, you have to get through all of the bad ideas first before you get to the good ones.
And you don't even know what a good idea is until you have bad ideas that you can compare it to.
A lot of people in the YouTube space just say that your first 100 videos just need to get out there because they're probably not going to be that great. But the whole goal of making those first 100 videos is to get better every single time. You've made over 1,000 videos, right, at this point? And all of those were learning lessons along the way. And so to help you guys shortcut the process a bit, there are a few characteristics of what makes a good idea. There are 4 components to a really good idea. First one is simple. Is the idea simple to understand? Even for this channel, one of the ideas that I had planned for a later video, I tried to pitch this idea to John Yushai when we met with him.
John, the poker one?
Yeah. So John Yushai came to the office here and we got to meet him, super cool guy. And I was like, oh, I'm going to pitch him an idea because I want him to eventually come on as a guest and help us teach creators. And he was like, all right, what's the idea? And I just I fumbled around. I'm like, oh, it's going to be an idea where we're going to be playing poker on this table. We're going to like try to help grow channels by investing in different revenue streams.
And the draft's going to come out.
Yeah, the draft's going to come out. And he stopped me, actually. He was like, hold on. It's like, this is too complicated.
Yeah.
Right? He was like, you guys are doing way too much. If a YouTube expert is telling me that, I'm like, all right, let's reel it back. I had to like return to our roots about what makes a good video and a good idea. It has to be simple. And so the new way that I'm going to pitch that video to him, if he's watching this, he'll know, we're going to go through every way creators can make money. And we're going to help them pick the best one for them. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Much simpler, right? It's like a lot easier. And then all the fun stuff can come afterwards, but they have to be bought into like, okay, this is the idea. And that's going to be like the way that you position this video. The second piece of good idea is how wide of an audience can you reach? Would your core audience like this video, right? That's your main audience. Would a casual viewer resonate with that idea? So people who may have seen your videos, but maybe not subscribed to you yet. And then would a completely cold audience also find interesting? So strangers discovering your channel for the first time. The best part about this is that YouTube released recently into their analytics a way to see this. There's a category now that says new viewers, casual viewers, and returning viewers. And so you can actually see the percentage of people who are finding your content. So the nuance there is that you still want to make it for your core audience, but you want to make it interesting enough that all three of those groups still might click on the video. The third piece is timeliness. Why are you making this video now? And why not next week? Why not next year? Why now? And this has to do with really understanding like the landscape and the meta of your industry that you're in. When we were building a first channel for students, a lot of the ideas that we would have would be like, let's make content about how to ace your exams or how to cram for your exams. But if we think about the psychology of our students, when do students take exams? Most of them are taking their finals during the beginning of summer and the end of the semester, right? I made a specific video about how to cram for your exams in like 24 hours. And that video, when we first launched it, didn't do that well. But randomly, like 3 months later, there was a huge uptick in that video because it was final season. And so maybe you have a good idea, but it really matters like when should you post that idea? Because it might really impact how successful it can be. Like I guarantee if I posted that video like right around finals time, it probably would have went viral and got even more discoverability than something that was like rediscovered later in the algorithm.
So anything seasonal, right? If you're talking about setting new goals or trying to change your life, that's probably around New Year's time when people have their resolutions. Or like Black Friday, you're talking about affiliate products and tech reviews and stuff like that.
So it's not just trends, it's also understanding the seasonality of the idea or also like where you're currently at with what you're doing. If your audience isn't ready for an idea yet, maybe it's not the right time to make it right now. For example, like if you wanted to make a deep dive masterclass in monetizing your channel, but our audience isn't even at the point where they're ready to monetize yet, then maybe we should wait to make that video, and you should help them get to where they are, like stepping stones in your strategy for the content that you should make. And the final piece of the idea, which is one that I think a lot of creators who start working on teams forget about, is do you want to make the video? Is this an idea that you're excited to make?
Yeah, I mean, that final one just trumps all the other criteria, right? If it's the best idea in the world, but you don't want to make it, maybe it's against your values or something, or maybe you just don't feel like making it, then there's no point.
Right, there's a lot of ideas that we could make on our channel about like fear-mongering or exposing other educators or channels or ideas, but it just doesn't really fit our brand.
How many ideas should we be coming up with per day?
So start with a simple habit of 10 ideas a day. Just write them somewhere in a notebook, maybe in a Notion template or any of these tools that exist, but just keep collecting ideas in some database where you can return to them and see, are your ideas actually getting better? But start with 10 ideas a day. And if you keep doing that over and over and having everyone on your team contribute to that as well, you'll start to develop patterns of good ideas that you can just start turning into videos.
10 sounds like a lot. Like when I first heard that, I was like, dang, that's a lot of ideas. But 10 is like the lower end of what pro creators and big companies actually do.
I remember I was listening to this Matt Pat interview. He's no longer on YouTube. But back in the days when they were strategizing like the launch of the different theory channels that they had a launch strategy where they would come up with, I think, 100 ideas before they even published their first video. If they couldn't come up with 100 good ideas for the channel, they wouldn't even launch the channel. So if that is like what the top 1% is doing, 10 seems like nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so what I like about doing just 10 a day is that you're breaking up this big process into pieces. and you're getting practice every single day. We obsess about learning science and how to learn skills faster. The best way to learn something is to just do it repeatedly. It's a lot better to space out the skill that you're working on versus doing it all at once.
And to break it down too. Just break it down into bite-sized, digestible pieces.
Get 10 ideas. When you come back to those ideas tomorrow or the next day, you'll probably have a different set of eyes on them. For me, sometimes when I put out all these ideas, I'll think like, oh, some of these are pretty good. And then I'll come back to them the next day and I'm like, oh, actually, that wasn't that good. And so just also getting a lot of eyes on your ideas is important. So if you don't already have creator friends or other creators who you know, that is something else I would really advise to do. Share your ideas with your community, with your friends, with your brother, with your team. It's hard to know what good looks like because a good idea, good storytelling is pretty subjective, right? Like your audience will be the one that determine whether or not your ideas are hitting. And so the more people you can share it with and get like a group consensus about, yes, this is the good idea. And obviously a consensus from people who are actually the target audience that you want to build, that is the best data you can get for good ideas.
Yeah, but the game is volume. Like even when we started this channel, we came up with over 100 ideas, but we actually also came up with like over 100 formats. So like, and there were a lot of people involved in the process too. We had like columns where people could like rate which formats they liked better. And this was all before posting the first video. And so when you get to a point where you just have hundreds of ideas, how do you know what to move forward with?
So the way we do this on our team is that we meet every week and everyone on the team is contributing ideas into what we call an idea bank. And to decide on which videos to actually make, we run through those 4 criteria. And if it hits all 4 of those, then we'll greenlight it. That's a term that comes from the Hollywood world. They greenlight movie ideas before they make them because they're really expensive and there's a lot of costs that go into it. So we're kind of treating our YouTube channels like mini Hollywood startups. So let's move on to step 2 now, which is packaging our videos. So packaging includes the 3 T's. You have titles, thumbnails, and the first 30 seconds of our video. And to explain the importance of packaging, let's do a little analogy. Have you ever played White Elephant before? The Christmas game where everyone brings a gift.
You steal.
Yeah, everyone brings a gift to White Elephant, and then when it's your turn, you get to choose a gift or you get to steal a gift from someone else. Let's say that we're both playing White Elephant with a group of people, and these are the last 2 gifts that can be chosen. One of them is very clear. It says Fujinon XF 23mm. We know this is a very expensive and nice camera lens. It's packaged nicely in this box. It's sealed. And the other one is this dirty bag that could be from a grocery store. I don't know what it is. It looks like it's trash, maybe from your bathroom. Which of these 2 would you pick?
I mean, this one, obviously.
This is the biggest problem that all creators on YouTube have to deal with because it doesn't matter what's actually inside of these, right? Inside the bag might actually be something really valuable, like an $800 camera lens. You might have something really valuable in your content. But if you don't package it well, no one's gonna choose it.
It's probably not even anything in here. You just stick it over there. So this is what I call clickbait.
That is clickbait, yeah, if you didn't get anything.
Nice packaging, but nothing.
We'll get to that when we get to the scripting part. YouTube is a very shallow platform. Everyone who is scrolling on YouTube on their phones, on the computer, they're all judging the book by its cover.
They're judging for a good reason, right? Like YouTube is a click and commit platform. Unlike TikToks and Instagrams of the world where you're just being spoon-fed content and you're just scrolling endlessly. I'm actually choosing to watch. So that's why I'm being very picky with my time.
When someone comes across a video, the first thing that your eyes go to is the thumbnail. So your thumbnail is really like the first introduction, like the first banner for a video. After you look at the thumbnail, your eyes scroll down to the title, then they scroll down to the subscriber, like or the channel, the profile picture and the view count. And then it comes and zooms out to everything together.
And then I also look at how long the video is too, just because I want to know like if I'm gonna get into like a 30-minute video, this better be good.
Yeah, so subconsciously, like all that happens in a matter of like 2 seconds. And if it doesn't pull someone in, if it doesn't seem like it's gonna be this nice $800 lens and it's like a piece of garbage like this, people are gonna go right past you. Because unlike what we have on the table here, there are a whole bunch of different gifts on the table. But people have to decide really fast. And that's why packaging is so important.
If they don't click, then everything afterwards doesn't even matter. Right? It doesn't matter how good your script is. It doesn't matter how good your editing is. Like if they don't click, then they're gonna move on to the next. But to that point, I think everyone does look at all the little details, like how many subs, how many views. And if you're a small channel, then you just don't stand a chance. Like you're just not going to win on that front. So that's why it's even more important for you to just make as good of a title and as good of a thumbnail as you can.
But why is the third T 30 seconds?
If you're scrolling through YouTube, then oftentimes the video will start playing, like even without any sound. So all 3 T's together is what will hook you into the video. So what makes good packaging?
That's a great question. And it comes back to that whole psychology experiment we did before we got into storytelling. Remember that the whole point of making good content is to tell a good story. The packaging is the beginning of the story. Packaging is the first piece of the story that someone is going to encounter.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the first moment of the story. But the climax of the story is the most exciting part. And oftentimes you'll see people using the climax as the packaging because they want to create curiosity. They want to create this huge gap of questions that you can only get answered if you click on the video.
And remember the 3 elements of storytelling. We want to create an emotional response. We want to give them a familiar pattern or something to recognize while also introducing something novel. So if there's any lever that you can pull in these 4 things here, packaging is the one that can really make or break your video, right? It's the difference between a video doing maybe 300,000 views and doing over 3 million views. And we know that because we had a video go through that process. We made a quiz to help you figure out what is your learning style. That was our idea. And this is the way we initially packaged it. We took a photo of me. I was standing in front of a whiteboard, pointing at the whiteboard,
right,
making this like angry face. And the title of the video said, "Everything you know about studying is wrong." Actually, not terrible packaging, I think. Like it creates emotion. Like, what do I know that's not wrong?
There's some curiosity there.
But the moment that you go into that video, we start talking about this brain type idea. And then the back half of that video is a quiz. It's 10 questions that you go through to discover your brain type. And I think that expectation just wasn't really met in the video. So there was what you call like a mismatch in expectation. So the video actually didn't do that bad. It got up to like 300,000 views. But for some reason, we're like, we think we can package this video a lot better. So the title was changed to "What is your brain type?" And then in parentheses, "brain type quiz." And then we switched the thumbnail also to a picture of 3 students with different brains. And they were all like doing different things, right, around a table. The expectation there is completely different now. Now they're asking the question of, what kind of brain do I have? Is there a difference in brains? Which one am I? And because they knew it was going to be a quiz, the people clicking the video are much more likely to stay through the end of the quiz because they already had that expectation. Immediately after we did that change, that video just started taking off. And now it's like one of our most viewed videos on YouTube at like 3-point-something million views. That is the power of just obsessing over good packaging for your videos. And so what smart brands and smart creators do is they get inspired by stuff that's already working. We see this all over YouTube. What's that quote from Picasso? Good artists copy, great artists steal. Just steal things that are working from other content that works and then give it your own twists. That's probably the smartest way to learn what works, and then you'll eventually develop your own style from it. Because hopefully down the line, that style will become what people will remember you for.
So what you're saying, the difference between copying versus stealing, copying, you're just taking the idea and just using it as your own. But stealing, you're stealing the idea, but then you're injecting your own perspective, your own style, your own take on it. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it novel. How many titles and thumbnails should you have for best practices?
YouTube allows you to do split testing of your packaging. What that means is you can test multiple variations of thumbnails for a video, and then YouTube will pick and choose the best one. But I also know that YouTube is about to roll out title testing as well, which is crazy. On our team, the creatives will come up with 3 unique concepts. And those concepts should look pretty different from each other, right? If you want to try 3 different things. To get even more granular with that, we have a specific way that we test these. So one of the thumbnails we would do is always something that's safe for your channel. So if you normally do this style of thumbnail with your face in it, then one of the thumbnails should be familiar. One of them is pushing the boundaries a little bit with something more experimental, but still experimental in your niche. So maybe other creators who are also making whatever content you're making, whether it's personal finance or fitness, or for us, it's like other creators in the education space. What are they doing and what's been unique there? And try to remix that for yourself. Now, the third idea is a completely experimental one. Look outside of your niche. What are people in like the gaming community using? And can you borrow some ideas from those thumbnails and put it into your mix? And I think that's a really healthy strategy. It goes along just with the same idea of like, what is your core audience like? What are the casual viewers like? And what are like completely cold audiences liking? Because you never know which one of those is really going to hit. and then drive new discoverability for your videos.
So what about titles?
Titles are usually a lot easier to come up with variations for. Obviously now, thanks to tools like AI, ChatGPT, Claude, even Spotter Studio, one of the ones that we've been using a lot, you can just keep getting variations and spin-offs of different titles. The problem is a lot of those titles sound very, you can tell sometimes that they're very AI. And so the caveat with me using AI is to use them as inspiration. Maybe they'll throw in different words that you might not have thought about, or different phrasing, or different grammar, and then using AI to help shorten or elongate titles. I think we brainstorm like, what are 10 amazing titles for this one idea? And then from there, we'll usually pick and choose and highlight like the best 3. And then we'll use those to test with.
But what is the importance of the first 30 seconds?
So the first 30 seconds really determine if someone is going to keep watching your video. There's this great line from the book, The Ad We Copy by Joseph Sugarman, that's always stuck with me. The goal of your first sentence is to get someone to read the second sentence. The goal of the second sentence is to get someone to read the third sentence, and so on and so forth. That has to do with everything we talked about here. The first goal of your thumbnail is to get someone to read the title. The first goal of the title is to get someone to, go down and see the subscriber count. And then it's to get someone to click. And then it's to get someone to watch the first 10 seconds, the next 10 seconds. And eventually, if they liked it, they'll just keep watching all the way to the end. And that's why a lot of people call the first 30 seconds the hook of your video. And the goal of the hook is to deliver on the promise of your packaging. So remember that packaging is starting to tease the story. If someone clicks on the video and that story that they were hoping they were going to watch isn't delivered, they're going to leave the video. And that actually has negative effects on your brand too. Mm-hmm. They'll associate bad clickbait with your channel, and then if they see your thumbnail again, they're not going to watch it. So that's why it's so important to front load all of the effort into your videos, because we want to make sure that they take the first action and then the next action and then the next action, which is why creators like Mr. Beast, Patty Galloway, they all emphasize really putting a lot of effort into those first 30 seconds of your video.
And there's one very important thing that needs to happen at the end of the first 30 seconds, or at the end of the hook. And that is, like you said, the quote is, the hook's responsibility is to get you to watch the next section. So when I click into the video, I'm thinking, is this actually the video that I clicked on? Or did I just get clickbaited? And I'm also thinking, is this video worth my time? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that run through my head when I'm trying to evaluate whether or not this video is worth it. And us coming from the educational YouTube world, right? If we're looking something up and we're trying to learn something, one of the most important things to me is like, who is actually teaching this? Mm-hmm. A very basic example is if you're looking up a video on how to drive a car and you click on the video and you get some 7-year-old talking to you about how to drive a car, mm-hmm. that person's probably never driven a car before.
Yeah. Expectation not met.
Yeah, exactly.
So the job of the first 30 seconds of the video is to get people to watch the rest of the video. What are some key things that help make that happen?
We call this the 3 Ps. It's promise, path, and proof. So first is the promise, right? What are you actually going to get out of this video? So in this video, for example, the promise is, we're going to teach you everything that you need to know about how to grow a creator company. Now, the path is how you get there. And in this video, the path is all the steps that it takes to build a creator company. We've gone through strategy. We're now at storytelling. We've got a few more sections coming up. But the path usually is some kind of roadmap. And it really helps when you provide a visual roadmap to kind of lay out, these are the steps visually for people to see. So the third thing is proof. Is there proof that I'm actually going to get the promise from this video? So if you clicked on this video, you're looking for ways on how to grow your creator company. You're probably asking a lot of questions. Can I even trust these guys? Can I trust the information that they're giving me? And so the proof comes when we lead with the things that we've done. We've already grown to millions of subs, millions of views, and we've built creator companies. And so when you lead with that authority, it gives more proof that the promise will be delivered on.
And the reason I love those 3 Ps is that it works for channels that are not educational as well. For example, Mr. Beast is not an educator, he's an entertainer, but the first 30 seconds of all his videos, he also follows those exact 3 things. It's usually a challenge like, we're giving away this much money. That's the promise. Like someone's gonna get this money and you know it.
There's like a giant pile of money right there. Yeah. Like, I'm not lying, here's the money.
The path he shows is, we're gonna be doing these challenges, and they're gonna get harder and harder and harder until the last person remains. And the proof is he's showing highlight reels of like people's reactions, emotions. He's showing visual proof that there's actually a story here to follow. So now we're gonna move on to the third piece of storytelling here, script writing. And script writing, I'm gonna broaden this idea of script writing to just how are you going to tell your story? And how are you going to communicate that story? Because there are a lot of channels that don't have a script, right? But there's still a story that flows through. So how are you going to communicate that story? There's a science to script writing. There's a way to tell a story that keeps people on the edge of their seat, like engaged and in flow with your videos. My favorite way to visually show what scripts should do is to use this roller coaster analogy. The goal of every section of your video is to get someone to watch the next section of the video. And in order to do that, we have to hook them over and over and over again. So imagine you're on a roller coaster, okay? And you are on this part here, going upward towards the top. What is that experience like for you?
That's like the build up. That's like the tension, basically.
Suspense.
Suspense, yeah.
Right.
Because you know something big is gonna happen. You know there's a big drop coming up.
Great, awesome. And then now once you get to the top, what is that experience like here?
It's just, you're gonna drop. That's
you
like
actually drop, right?
The peak of dopamine, I would say.
Yeah, and then obviously you're having fun, right? You're going down the roller coaster, your hands are in the air, everyone's screaming and having a really good time. And then there's probably a part where you hit the bottom of the roller coaster and then it turns slowly. What's that experience there?
You're basically looking around the corner and you're seeing the next big pike coming up.
So that experience that you just described there is the exact experience that you want someone to experience when they're watching one of your videos. And all of that can come through in good writing and good planning of your videos. And those two things that we just talked about are the three components of good script writing. I thought that the best videos are the ones where you're just brain dumping as much value as possible, or you're always trying to get people more excited and more excited and more excited. But I'm gonna bring back the music example once again, as we always do. Imagine if you are at a concert and the entire concert was just one giant buildup for an hour. Probably get pretty bored, right?
Yeah.
Or imagine if it was all just chorus, just only chorus for like 30 minutes, or only breakdown for 30 minutes. Individually, those things aren't great for too long. What's really important is contrast, is having moments of buildup, followed by a payoff, and then a transition, and then having those different swings in your experience, your emotion, that gets someone really engaged in your videos.
So it's a contrast or the change. And if you think about some of the most exciting roller coasters, it's actually like the roller coasters with the biggest drops, right? And it's actually during all this rise on the way to the top is when dopamine is actually released. The more contrast you have, the more dopamine you release. The whole goal with script writing and video editing is to create this contrast.
This roller coaster of emotion.
Yeah.
Because emotions that we feel is actually tightly linked to our nervous system.
Dopamine is the chemical of motivation, right? Anticipation. The best videos that keep high retention are the ones that work this contrast. And so if you zoom out, this entire video should end on a cliffhanger because you want to leave curiosity here to lead into the next video, right? So it's just an infinite, never-ending roller coaster of people just binging your content nonstop.
Yeah, this is a mistake that a lot of creators make. They end their videos at the bottom of the roller coaster. We want to leave people at a very highly emotional state because that will encourage them to watch another video or to take action on something very sensational that maybe you've provided. This is a way to make people crave watching more of your content.
A lot of creators make the mistake of making it feel like it's about to end, right? Ending on a down note. You don't want to say, hey, thanks for watching and make sure you like and subscribe and all that stuff. For this video, if you enjoyed all these strategies on how to build a creator company, then we also have this video over here that deep dives into, the science of script writing or something like that, which we definitely will have in the future. Yeah, so let's get into tactics for scripting and also video editing because those two work hand in hand.
We have a framework that we use. And it's
probably
another
has to do with three.
It's three things again, and it's also an alliteration. So the first one is conflict. Imagine you watched a movie and there was no conflict.
Boring.
Like, why would you watch it?
Yeah.
Right? The reason we watch videos or we watch TV or we watch movies is because of conflict.
Something needs to change.
Yeah, something needs to change.
Yeah.
That's a good way to say it. Either the character or there's some problem they're trying to solve. Establish right up front for the first little hump that you're going to go up, what is the problem? And a good question to answer for your conflict is why, right? Why is this a problem? Why do we need to learn about this thing? Why does Frodo need to get to Rivendell? Why does Frodo need to get to Mordor? And this works across entertainment. This works across educational channels, any kind of content that you make. So for educational videos, like the ones we're doing right now, the why is always, why does this matter? what are the stakes of not knowing this information? And so instead of us just saying that, oh, you need to make good videos that tell stories, we started with the why. Storytelling is important because it's memorable. And this is what memorable content does for you, right? It's shared, it grows. We went into all the science about why. Then we move on to the next C, which is the climax, the payoff, the falling down the roller coaster. And so the climax, if there was one question, it's how. Some people often call this like the implementation as well. But now that we've explained the reason why, we need to show how it's actually done. And that's going to be usually in educational content when people have light bulb moments. It's like, oh, I understand now. This is how it all works together. So for this video right here, first we explained the brain stuff, and now we're showing you how it actually works by going step by step by step. Which brings us to the last C, which is the curve to the next point. We call it the connection. So the connection is the transition. And the question we can ask here is, what now? What's next?
Yeah.
Because in educational content, after you solve a problem, there's always another problem, right? Life is just a series of problems. And once you solve one, there's going to be another problem. Sometimes there's a lot of new problems that get revealed. We're building up the conflict. We're delivering a climax, and then we're connecting it to the next problem and building up conflict again. We just keep doing that over and over throughout our video in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, and however many acts there are. And then we end the video by building up to the climax so that when they watch the next video, it's an immediate payoff. It's an immediate climax. They get some value, and then it goes into the next point. So it's really this roller coaster that just never ends, hopefully. And let's keep going around in circles forever.
Yeah, just binging your content in an endless loop, which is a good thing if your content is helping people.
So that's how we implement this framework into educational content. But obviously, this exact same thing works for entertainment content as well. Let's use Ryan Trahan as an example. He just did this elaborate 50 states traveling across the country Airbnb thing, right? At the beginning of his videos, what he always does is he introduces the conflict.
This is a map of America. There are 50 states, and this summer I'm going to attempt my dream of going to all 50 in just 50 days.
We're about to go to California, but there's all these problems that we're going to face along the way. And then he solves the problem. And then immediately he'll set up the stakes with, all right, now here's the next problem.
So this is the Wheel of Doom. If someone activates it, we have to spin it where we are no matter what. Each of these symbols represent a penalty.
You can just kind of follow the same pattern here of conflict, climax, connection, conflict, climax, connection. And that should keep people really engaged throughout your video. So script writing is really the planning of this roller coaster. Making the videos is now translating that to YouTube, right? Like all of this up to the scripting point is what we call pre-production. And the more you focus on pre-work, the better chance your video has of performing well.
Yeah, because the editing actually amplifies the pre-work, right? So if based on your script, you know that we are in a part of a video that's building up conflict, then the editing needs to also serve that. So if you're building up conflict and you're using some kind of, like peaceful, like carefree song, and like it's not creating the tension, then it's totally off, right? It's because if you're a script writer or the creative director and you don't have good pre-work and you don't tell the video editors that, hey, I want at this point in the video it to be building up conflict. If they don't know that, they're gonna do something like pick a song that doesn't fit, right? Like pick like a happy song or like a carefree song when it should actually be dramatic and epic. It's just little things like that, or using the wrong B-rolls or using the wrong cuts. Video editing really depends on good pre-work.
And that was a mistake that we actually made for a long time. We would do a lot of pre-work in terms of like writing out a script, but we wouldn't take the next step, which is communicating that idea to the next team member, to editors. Like there was not a good handoff. Our editor would have the script, but they wouldn't know how to interpret the script. That's like the next level of good storytelling. Not only are you writing a good idea and packaging it and scripting it, but you have to be able to communicate that to your team so they can execute on making a good video. And we'll get to a lot of those systems in the next section. So what does good handoff look like? For us, we always make sure to clearly outline what are the acts that we're gonna go through, what are all the big buildups and payoffs that we want to achieve, and also what are the emotions that we want our audience to experience as they're going through this roller coaster. Are they supposed to feel frustrated here with a character? We wanna at least paint that picture so that the editor knows how to edit that scene. That wraps up the storytelling section.
So one of my favorite quotes about systems is that systems run businesses and people run systems. Maybe you've been doing this by yourself and you can only do so much by yourself before you're spread too thin.
There was this video idea that we really wanted to make a long time ago. We wanted to make a collab video with another YouTuber, Justin Sung. He was another YouTuber in the study space, and we loved the way he taught, and we thought it would be such a good idea to combine audiences together. But I remember we both got together to brainstorm that video, and we had completely different directions of how this video would go. And we sat in a studio together, and we just argued about how it should go for like 3 or 4 hours, like just butting heads crazy, trying to make like, no, it should be like this, like we should get them on like this, we should be on a Zoom call together, we should have one of us explaining, the other person taking notes or something like that. And so much time passed by and we got nowhere with that video. And we had planned to film this video with him tomorrow. So it's like, we have to make progress here. And so I think what ended up happening was we just said, okay, let's just go with one of these ideas. We went with your idea. It ended up being a great idea, but just having someone take ownership and take control of the decision making, it allowed us to move forward like instantly. It really made me realize how important it is to have separate roles in the process.
So a lot of creators, they start solo, right? All by themselves. And it might be a little scary to bring someone else on your team. And I heard this specifically from a lot of people. They would say, why would I bring someone else onto my team if they can only do it like half as good as me or like, 70% as good as me?
That is a belief you have to smash as fast as possible.
Let's say you bring in a video editor, right? You're not trying to find someone who does the video editing half as good as you. Mm-hmm. If they're going to be spending all their time, full time on editing, you're expecting them to get better, to get deep in the craft, to spend more time researching and practicing. Mm-hmm. They should be better than you. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole point here, is when you're bringing a team together, you're bringing in a team of people who will specialize. Tiago, he's now our lead editor. He just completely changed my mindset about this. He's taking over the editing. He's spending his full time specializing and learning the craft. Like he's still doing like workshops and courses to stay updated on his skills. And that's just something that I don't have the time to do. But him doing that allowed us to focus on other things like growing the business.
I think that's the important mindset shift I had too. It's that not only could he do it better, but it gave us time back to do other things that would help grow the business.
So when you're building systems and hiring people, you got to think about it in specialized roles. So even between the two of us, we actually split into roles that complemented who we are as people, right? Like I would consider I'm probably more of the analytical type, whereas you are more of the creative type. This goes even back to childhood with all the video games that we used to play. One of our favorite games was Dota. It's a team game, right? It's 5 versus 5. And I would always gravitate towards the support/leadership role. Mm-hmm. You would gravitate towards like the carry, like
the solo mid.
Yeah, the one that basically like carries the whole team on their back role.
Yeah.
It's kind of because I liked playing the characters that were coordinative, whereas you play the characters that would just take a long time to get going. But once you get going, you just bulldoze over people. So that was your style, right? Yeah. And your characters are just very technically challenging to play. And that's kind of how we divide the roles in business too. Like I gravitated more towards the operational side and then you more towards the visionary side. And once we made that shift, things just started running a lot smoother, right? I was responsible for these decisions and you were responsible for those. And since I had to own these decisions, I had to spend all my time researching and learning about it, getting specific coaches to help me with this. Whereas you were totally accountable for that over there. We quickly realized that this is how some of the best businesses do it too. We read this book called Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman. The way that he broke it down just made so much sense to me. He said, in every business, there are 2 leaders that are absolutely crucial. You have the visionary and you have the integrator. So imagine that your business is this giant ship. The visionary is the person, he's like the captain of the ship, usually standing above the deck. Maybe he's got his little telescope here. He can see far into the distance.
And he's got that, what do you call it, the steering wheel?
The steering wheel too, yeah. Captain of the ship here. And he is basically responsible for the direction of the ship to steer in the right direction. Mm-hmm. The integrator is usually behind the scenes. So they're usually below the deck. And they're the ones who are coordinating with the entire crew. Down below the deck is where all the team members are rowing in unison. Mm. And the only way they're rowing in unison is because they have an integrator who is calling the shots, right? Who is chanting the rhythm. So the visionary is setting the course, steering the ship, but the visionary needs to have a very close relationship to the integrator. A lot of companies, they do a meeting almost every day, where it's just the visionary and the integrator. And the integrator is responsible for executing the vision, whereas the visionary is responsible for having the ideas. And so you need both in business.
This structure is seen across pretty much every industry of business. Coming from the startup world again, the biggest example of this is Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. You see it with like Bill Gates, Paul Allen.
Even in the creative world, right? You got Chris Nolan and his wife. Like one person's the director and the other person is the producer.
I know a lot of personal brand YouTubers also do this. For example, we mention them a lot, but the Hormozis. Alex is
great example.
Usually the creative front, the salesperson, and then Layla is the operator, managing everything. I know that Dr. K over at Healthy Gamer, Dr. K is the one behind the camera. He's the one delivering the videos. He's the one out there, but his wife is also the one running the business on the back end. I don't know why it's always like the guy is the front face and the women. Maybe women are just better operators. I don't know if that's true or not, but like for those splits, that's just how it seems to be.
So we have these roles, and if the goal is to go from constrained creator to creator CEO, we need to build systems. This is the path to building a creator company. So looking at a creator company, it is made up of individual systems, right? Because systems run businesses and people run systems. A traditional business has 3 primary systems. You have the marketing and sales, which I'll just write M. You have operations, and then you have fulfillment. So marketing and sales, basically you're getting customers, you're making profit. Fulfillment is you're creating the product, delivering the product. And then operations just keeps your business running on the day-to-day. So as a constrained creator, first of all, you are doing all of this yourself. But it gets worse than that. Most creators are only just focused on fulfillment. Right? Fulfillment is creating and delivering the product. And in the case of a creator company, the product is the videos, your media, your content. But you can't go on forever without ignoring these 2 other engines.
Well, you can, but you're just going to burn out.
Yeah.
So what you're saying here is that to go from a constrained creator to a creator CEO, we have to build 3 massive systems. But most constrained creators are only focused on building one of these systems.
So let's translate this into what it looks like in a creator company. So fulfillment is creating and delivering the product, which means you're creating the videos, distributing the videos, like publishing them. But marketing is actually getting customers, actually getting money. In this case, you need someone going out there and getting brand deals, right? Talking to brands, talking and getting partnerships. And then operations, these are things like your finance, accounting, legal. These are things that just keep the business overhead running.
So if these are the 3 big systems that creator companies need to build, how do you actually build the system? Like, what is a system?
So first, let's answer your question, right? Like, what is a system? So each system is a series of steps, and each step has its own SOP, which is a standard operating procedure. It's exactly how you do each step, right? So if a system has like step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do that, then an SOP is exactly how to do that. So let's use the fulfillment engine as an example, because we've already started talking about some of this. Fulfillment is creating the product and distributing it. And so in a creator company, that is ideation all the way to publish. Step 1 is come up with good ideas, and then you package titles, thumbnails. And the next is outline and research. And from there, you script the video. After that, film the video, edit the video, and then finally publish the video, which is delivering the product. And there's probably a lot of other steps in between here, right? Depending on the kind of videos that you make, depending on the type of company that you are. And I know that some videos don't have scripts at all. Some of them have like a very extensive filming process. Some of them have a very extensive quality control process. But to simplify it, these are the basic steps, right? So step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, love that. So the first step into building a system is to identify what are all the steps that you do for your fulfillment process.
And then once you have these steps, you go into each step and figure out the SOPs for them. So let's take ideation, for example. We have a lot of SOPs for how to come up with good ideas. You can look for outliers, you can do keyword research, you can do burner accounts, right? So all of those things have very specific details and instructions on how to do it.
But the way that I do it is probably different from the way that you do it, or the way that, another YouTube channel does it.
But when it comes to building a company where we all work together, we need a standard operating procedure. We need it to be the same across the board, because if it's not standard, it's very hard to find someone to fill in that role and delegate.
Man, that reminds me of a lot of moments in our business where things just went crazy.
Yeah.
So I remember like when we were first starting to build a team, we were kind of flip-flopping roles often. Like sometimes you would take care of ideation and then you'd be like, all right, I want to move on to something else. Like you want to take a stab at it? And then I would do ideation, but I have a whole different process of it. And then we would try to hire a team member into it. And then I would teach them my process, but then you would teach them your process. And it's like, which one do they do? And they would get really confused and then they wouldn't get good ideas for us. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important, like you're saying, to have someone own the system. That way, everyone's following the same playbook. And we get consistent results.
So I'm just writing multiple SOPs here because there are many different ways that we do ideation. But every single step here has their own SOPs, right? We have our way of doing titles. We have our way of doing thumbnails. So your job as the creator CEO is to map out every single SOP for your system. We found that an easy way to do this is to just literally record yourself, like with a Loom or with OBS, record yourself doing the thing. And that video itself becomes the SOP, where you can use it to show other people how you do it.
There's a pretty important lesson that I've learned from building a lot of SOPs. So a few years ago, we started a podcast called The Mike and Maddie Show. And I had known on the internet that a lot of channels take podcasts and they clip them into shorts. And they post those shorts across all platforms. So I had this idea that we were gonna just grow on like 5 platforms at once. Just like make content, repurpose it, and then post it to like X, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. But I had never really made shorts before. So I just quickly like went to Descript, which is the tool I was using. I chopped up a whole bunch of shorts and filmed myself doing it. And then we went and hired really cheap talent to just make shorts like that. We paid a contractor to make, I think it was like 7 or 8 shorts per podcast. And at the end of the month, I had like almost 100 shorts from this editor. I posted every single one of those for 100 days straight, and all of them tanked. I don't think any of them got more than like 1,000 or 2,000 views. And I say that because I built a system before I knew that the system worked. Mm-hmm. So all we did was just make a lot of really bad shorts. And we posted all of them.
Tons of garbage.
And I was like, why isn't this working? And it's because I hadn't actually learned how to make good shorts yet. And so what I learned there is before you try to build a system, you want to make sure you get results. Like make sure that you can get the desired outcome that you want. And when you can do it repeatably, now let's figure out what the system was, but don't do it the other way around.
And a lot of our students, they're just really obsessed with efficiency and they want to build systems so they can remove themselves from the business.
I mean, we're like that too, to be honest.
Us like too, yeah. But like if you don't have a business that's working, then you can't remove yourself, right? So you got to focus on making good videos first. Mm-hmm. Focus on the storytelling, make better titles, thumbnails, videos, and then once it's working, then you systemize it.
And I think that's something I wish I heard earlier, that before you have results, you're going to be putting in a lot more work. Building systems takes time. Like it might take 3 months, it might take 6 months before you even know that you have a product that's good. So it's going to take that long for you to figure out whether or not you should build systems and whether you should put someone in there. Because if you don't know what you're building, you know what you're making, then how are you going to have someone else hop in and help you do it if you don't even know where you're going?
And as we did this, we started to realize that we couldn't possibly do all this ourselves. Because remember, this is still just the fulfillment engine. We were still just constrained within this single system, but there are 2 other systems that we needed to handle. So initially, we separated our skill set as like creative director and producer, just ideating the videos and making sure they get done. But that's still constrained within this single system. We had no one doing marketing, sales, getting brand deals, doing the day-to-day operations, right? So you quickly find out that you're just really constrained when you list out all the duties that need to be done, especially in the steps that require a lot of creativity, right? Like packaging or video editing. But once we saw all the steps mapped out, then we were able to plug in specialists, right? Our first hire was a video editor. That was taking up the most of our time, to be honest. As you grow your creator company, you can start plugging in more people. You can start offloading more tasks. That's when you can start thinking about getting a script writer or getting a researcher or getting someone to help you with ideation.
There's this analogy I've heard a lot that you know that you have a good SOP when someone can hop in and then get the same exact results as you. So the analogy is the McDonald's. Like when McDonald's hires someone into their system, it could be any teenager. And they just have to follow the SOP and they can make the same tasting Big Mac, right? Yeah. And that's why they're able to grow to the size that they have, because they can hire anyone from around the world to just follow the SOP and get the same product. The problem is in a creator company, in a media company, you can't just follow a checklist because content and media and art is subjective. And everyone that works in any of these steps has to inject their own creative taste into it, right? Like someone we hire to edit our videos, you can hire 2 different video editors. They can follow the same SOPs that you have, but I guarantee they're gonna end up with a different looking video because they have to inject their own creativity into it. And that same idea goes for the scriptwriter. Like writing is a creative act, or finding ideas. Like what do you think is a good idea is gonna be different from what I think is a good idea. And so there's a little bit more of a challenge when you're plugging people into a creator company.
Yeah, and we especially noticed that when we started our YouTube agency, Koi Media, right? So we were editing videos for other educational brands. And that's when a lot of subjectivity comes in.
Yeah, I remember one of our clients we worked with, I was helping create videos for them. And I was super excited to share this one video that we worked on because I thought it was gonna do really, really well. Shared it with the client and he watched it through and he hated it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely hated it. He's like, this is not at all what I want. Like, this is completely off brand and everything like that. And I was like, ooh, that's weird because I thought I knew what I was doing. That was the same reaction and response that I've had to some of the editors that we've worked with in the past. Like they would send back a video and I was just like, this was awful. Like this is not at all what I want. But they probably thought it was.
I mean, they thought it was good because they followed the exact checklist that we gave them, right? But they just didn't have the same taste as you.
And so I realized from that there are actually 2 types of SOPs. There are checklists, which are very technical things that you have to do. And then there are also guidelines, which are just interpret this how you want to. This is my idea, but I want you to take it and give it your own twist, right? Give me your injection of art into what I'm going to give you. And then if it aligns, then you're a good fit. And that's really what we're trying to do when you're building a creator company. You're trying to find other creatives who share a similar taste to you or elevate your tastes, right? The best people we've worked with are the ones who have taken our content, our frameworks, our ideas, our guidelines, and then given us something better. And I'm like, wow, that came out back better than I thought it would. Those are the people that we want to keep working with.
So what are some examples of these guidelines?
One of the most important ones you have to build is what we call a brand kit. So this is everything from what types of visuals you like to use, what's the personality of your channel, your brand voice, what kind of language do you normally use, the color palette, the typography.
Another one we have is an editing manual. It's just telling the editors what style of editing we like. A channel like Mr. Beast, which may have like really high retention, loud in your face, action-packed videos versus a MKBHD video, which is more like relaxed, more analytical, more chill. Both great videos, both get millions of views, but just different taste. And so the point of the editing manual is to capture that taste.
That is something that we've learned over many years of doing this, but the most important piece about building a good brand kit or good guidelines is to just give it a ton of examples. It's really easy to say, do this, but it's a lot more effective to show them what you want. It's the difference between showing and telling. As many examples as you can, and then not only just giving them an example of what good looks like, but explaining how to create what good looks like. So instead of just writing this written brand guideline, I've also injected in ours a whole bunch of videos of me explaining and walking through, this is exactly how you do this thing. This is how you find this asset. This is my thought process as I'm going into actually implementing it. That is going to train your team so much faster.
Once you mapped out all your SOPs, you can see what roles are missing, right? Maybe you as a constrained creator are doing everything. Maybe midway here, you start to have your first hires. Ours was an editor. Maybe you can start getting like a script writer or something. But all the way down here, when you have like a full-on creator company, you probably have specialists in each of these roles, from packaging specialist to researcher to script writer to editor to channel manager. Someone responsible and accountable for making decisions within their lane. And that takes us to the next part, because all the steps, all the SOPs, and the systems run the business. But now we got to find the people to run the systems. So time to build a team. So we already know these are all the seats that I need to fill. But in what order do I fill up these seats? Like our first hire was a video editor, but we know other people who hired a producer first. We know other people who hired script writers first. And it depends on what kind of videos you make, what kind of business you're running. But once you have the full picture, then you have to focus on the most important thing, which is revenue, right? A business needs money to survive. The order of who you hire needs to ensure that someone is working on revenue. So when it comes to building a team, there are 3 simple steps. You got to figure out who you need to hire, where are you going to find them, and then how are you going to measure their success?
For most creator businesses that are growing, the main revenue driver is the content, right? Like you can't make more revenue until you have proof that you can make good content. Because good content not only gets you ad revenue from YouTube, but also unlocks opportunities like sponsorships and brand deals. So if we're looking at just fulfillment, because this is where most creators start, who should they think about hiring first?
So that's where we recommend doing a time audit, right? Just mapping out where are you spending your time?
A lot of people have no idea where they spend their time. Maybe it's like 4 hours on TikTok every night.
Exactly.
Like watching TV or something.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like you think it's somewhere, but it's actually somewhere else.
The next thing you should do is really reevaluate what is your current goal. And I would actually reframe this not as a goal of growing a huge channel or becoming $1 million business. Flip it to what are the input goals that you can do. Because those are the things that you can actually control. You can't control the algorithm. You can't control everyone's subjective tastes of what they think about your videos. But what you can control is, I'm gonna make sure I get 2 videos done by this week.
Yeah, there's this James Clear quote that I love is you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
And just keep breaking that down. Like we know what it takes to post a video a week. It requires all of these steps that we just mapped out in our system. If the goal is to say 1 video a week, which was our goal for the first 3 years, actually it's still our current goal right now.
Yeah.
I think we're actually ramping it up to 2 videos a week on our other channel. How are we spending our time every day to make that happen? There were moments where we fell behind and we were struggling to get 1 video a week.
I thought that I was spending a lot of time writing scripts and like doing research. Like I was going down rabbit holes just doing research and reading books, right? When we did the time audit, I was actually spending a lot of time editing the videos, which made a lot of sense. I mean, I was editing mine and your videos.
Right.
So this was the huge constraint in our system. Yeah. So that made sense that this was our first hire, which was a video editor.
Now that the video editor is there, what's the next constraint? What's the next place in this step that needs attention? For us, it was someone to write better scripts for us. Then we'd probably now hire a scriptwriter. Once that person's filled in, what's the next constraint? You just keep finding all the constraints in your business over and over and over, and then that determines who you should hire.
All right, so the next step is where. Where are we gonna find these people? And when it comes to hiring from the creator economy, this is pretty challenging. So for example, if you go to job sites like Fiverr or Upwork or onlinejobs.ph or whatever job site, you're gonna find a lot of D players and they're all looking for work. But it's very rare, at least in our experience, it's very rare you're gonna find an A player. A players are already in the companies. That's why you see at the very top levels, like these companies are just sniping each other's A players. But when you're first starting out, you're first trying to just stop being a constrained creator, you just need to get people to fill in some of these steps. I would not hold back on going into these job sites. So I want to share a quick tip that we found here from hiring and working with, I don't know, like over 100 editors at this point, like dozens and dozens of designers and script writers, is that there is a special way that you can find pretty good talent. And that is the good talent, they're also making content and they're also building their own brand. So we've found a lot of luck on places like LinkedIn or X, Instagram, right? Like a video editor who is really good, they're posting their edits, right? They're showing the world like, this is what I do. If they're learning their craft, they're sharing what they learn. They're going above and beyond.
Another underrated place to look for, which we've had several people work with for a very long time, is look in your own audience, look in your own communities. Several editors and social media managers that we've worked with came from within our own audience. And the reason I like that option is because people in your own community, they already like you. They already trust you and they already understand and know your brand. So now that you've hired someone into your team, how do you make them successful?
So we have a framework for this. This framework, which I wish we had a lot sooner because it would have saved us so much time and money, is the 3 C's. So the first C is capability. That is having the skill sets. Like, can you actually edit a video? Or can you actually make thumbnails? Or are you just like a graphic designer who's never done it and you have to actually learn how to do thumbnails on the job? Yeah,
this is usually done before you hire. Like you want to vet them and see like their portfolio of work. What other projects have they worked on? What other creators they might have worked with, just to see like what is the quality of work they can deliver. Like we wouldn't even hire someone unless we knew that they could potentially do the job.
And if you want to do extra diligence, oftentimes we'll put them through a trial run. We've given dozens of editors the exact same like 2-minute video to edit just to compare them against like what we consider as gold standard. And if they don't meet that challenge, then they're not capable. So a person that lacks capability, they're going to waste your time. Meaning that you're going to spend time holding their hand and teaching them on the job.
I've done that so much. The whole goal of us hiring more people was to offload work from me. And what happened was I replaced doing the work with teaching someone how to do the work. That's like, I'm still spending that time in that step. And it's like, why am I working with this person if I'm just spending the same amount of time doing it?
I mean, you can't escape teaching someone their role, but it's usually stuff like teaching them our style or teaching them our brand guide, right? But you don't want to be teaching an editor like how to do a J cut. Like that's like, those are fundamentals.
Exactly. So that's what like a trial edit for a video editor would look like. That same standard could apply for someone who makes thumbnails. Like if they can make a sample thumbnail for you and it doesn't have the minimum standards of what you think a good thumbnail should be, then you wouldn't even want to move forward with them.
Another aspect of capability is, do they know how to use the tools that you use in your company? Like a big one for us is Notion. Like if you don't know how to use Notion and you need us to walk you through it, then sure, we can walk you through it, but also do you have like the hunger to learn it? But for something like video editors, right, we require them all to at least use Premiere Pro. That's part of our system. But of all the C's, I would say capability is probably the least important, surprisingly. These other two were like the game changer for us. So the second C here is culture. Let's say we find someone who is not quite that skilled of an editor, but they're just a perfect culture fit. I will take them. I will spend that extra time to teach them because we know that they're a culture fit. Culture fit means that, are they a fit with our vision? Like, do they actually want what the company wants? Is this a person you actually get along with? Because without culture, you're basically hiring a mercenary.
Yeah.
You're basically hiring someone who's just in it for the money. And as soon as they see a better opportunity, then they're gone. And that's happened to us a few times. Culture is a lot harder to train than capability. I wouldn't say it's impossible. Like culture, you can build it, like with certain team building activities and a certain way that you demonstrate being a role model for certain behaviors. You can train culture into a person, but it's a lot harder.
This is why, again, I said that hiring within your community could be a good place to start, because those people who are in your audience probably already like the stuff you're doing and they like where your company is going. But if you're not hiring within and you're using something like you said, YouTube Jobs or roster.com or other places where you're posting your own job listing, you can actually weed out for culture through a really good job description. So I learned this from one of my friends who's running another YouTube agency. He really puts a lot of work and effort into writing a very detailed job description that says, we are looking for this type of person specifically. Like our goal in our company is to become the #1, I don't know, best fast food restaurant delivery service in the world. And we want people who are obsessed about that. By creating a really detailed job description like that, you're gonna naturally weed out people who are like, they read that and they're like, oh, that's not me. Like, I'm not interested in that.
I'm not striving for excellence.
Right, yeah. I want to be mediocre at
I just need a quick buck.
Yeah, exactly. And so putting your standards and expectations up front in the job description, it will not completely eliminate it because you're still going to get people who are trolls who are just going to apply to everything. You are actually putting out there like, these are your values and this is what your company stands for.
So this last C is probably the most important one. And the reason I say that is because it's the hardest to train into people. And this is character. So I think in the creator economy in general, there is a big, I want to say character problem, but it's like a maturity problem because a lot of people haven't seen what good professionalism looks like. It's a place where there's a lot of young people, like teenagers, people in their early 20s, often their first job, often their first side gig where they're just trying to make some money. And so they actually haven't been in a situation where professionalism really mattered. And so we've had a lot of people who were capable that just didn't finish the project. And they were like, hey, I don't think I'm going to finish the project today. So you can just find someone else to do it. Like we literally had someone send us that message. And I was like, dude, you can't just drop a project, right? I just paid you. And he's like, I don't care. I don't need the money. I have other things to do. And there's no repercussions for that. Like, sure, they're probably going to get a lower rating on their Fiverr account or something. Like, doesn't matter to them. Like, they'll start a new account, whatever.
How would you define, like, what are the things in professionalism that you're looking for?
So I think one of the most important things is integrity. They do exactly what they say they will do. Some people are just all talk, but when it comes time to act, they don't show up, right? We see that time and time again. And I would say equally as important is honesty, like just telling the truth. Yeah. We've had so many problems with that too. For example, one of our editors, he said that he got sick, got sent to the hospital. And so, hey, like I can't finish your video because I'm in the hospital. He actually took a photo of himself in the hospital, like in the hospital bed, and sent it to us. And when we looked at the photo, we saw like his wristband was on the photo and the wristband was like from 2 years prior. So we're like, wow, this guy just straight up lied to us.
Yeah. immediately was fired. It's such a shame because I remember him specifically. He was a really talented
He was
editor.
very talented.
He was very capable at his job. Sort of fit the culture too. Like he loved the brand,
But yeah, he was part of the audience.
but just didn't.
That wasn't the first incident where he lied.
He was in the hospital pretty frequently.
Yeah.
And it's really tricky because many people that we've hired have been from all around the world. That's what I love about the creator economy is that you can connect with anyone. You can work with people from the Philippines, from Europe, from America, from anywhere else, and you can still run a very successful company. But the problem is when you don't have that face-to-face and there's not that like deeper connection of being in person and getting to know each other, it's actually a lot harder to evaluate character sometimes. Sometimes this can slip away, and that's why it's the most challenging one to really get right.
Yeah. And I would say a third piece, which is also very important, is just thinking of yourself as part of a team, being a team player. That includes being a good communicator.
Oh, that's the biggest one.
Keeping everyone in the loop of what you're doing or what you're not able to do, because YouTube is multiplayer. Building a company is a team sport. And so that also means putting yourself before others. When you know that you're going to go on vacation or you know that you want to take some time off, then that's going to impact everybody else. So communicate that and think ahead of time. Be proactive and just let people know like, hey, I need some help here. And so once you have all these 3 C's figured out, you can then create what we call a scorecard. The scorecard is how you measure someone's success. And you want to use this scorecard to evaluate your team members on a quarterly basis. Like make sure that you meet with them. And I found that something very useful is to ask them, how do you think you did on this? Like ask them to rank themselves. And what I found was it's often very different. Like what they thought they were doing versus what everyone else thought they were doing.
That reminds me of medical school. Like after every rotation I did during 3rd year, we always had to do a self-evaluation first. I think it's important because you want to be able to provide the best feedback for your team members or your students. You can kind of think of them as your students, right? Like you're training them to be part of your company. It's hard to give good feedback and good advice until you understand where is their headspace currently at. Like if they don't think they have a problem, then you telling them that they have a problem somewhere is going to create this very hostile relationship. But if they can identify for themselves where they think they are, and you can be like, okay, so he thinks he's here. Let's try to meet the middle ground of where we are, right? I think that just comes from experience of us being, 1, in the medical field, but 2, just doing this for a long time.
The scorecard says you need to meet a quota of being 100% on time, right? So there's no black or white. You were either 100% on time or you weren't 100% on time. That's something that they can easily measure too. Or saying like your quota is to deliver 3 videos per month. Did you deliver 3 videos per month? And when you set those black and white goalposts, then you can actually position yourself on their side and say like, hey, I know you didn't meet 3 videos per month. Let's figure out together how we can get you there. It's not just like now it's me versus you now. It's we're both in the same team and our input goal is to do 1 video per week. And that is the input goal that results in 1 million subscribers.
So what are you actually putting inside of these scorecards?
The place that you would start is with your core values. So I actually learned from Layla Hormozi. She has been managing hundreds of team members throughout all her years in business. One of the core values for us is we're trying to strive for excellence. So that's like creating quality content. And so if you break that down, that could be things like paying attention to detail, making sure that you have 0 grammar mistakes, 0 spelling mistakes, for example. Color grading is on point. Sound levels are even. We actually have a lot of things related to communication in our scorecard because we found that communication is crucial when it comes to meeting deadlines. Through all these steps, it is a whole team effort, right? Yeah. One person slips up and it just affects everybody else. And so some of the very specific things we have in the scorecard are like, if someone sends you a message, you have to confirm that you received the message. Like give a thumbs up or like say message received, literally type in message received.
So what happens when a team member isn't meeting these standards? Like how many second attempts or 3rd tries or 4th tries do we give them?
So we do this thing called a performance improvement plan, right? PIP, right? So it's usually across a 30-day period where I'll sit down with the editor, designer, or scriptwriter, whoever, and say, hey, look, all these points on the scorecard you have missed the mark on. How do we work together to improve that? This is a 30-day plan to try to get you back on track. And if they're not able to improve, then unfortunately, they are not a good fit for the team. And we've actually struggled with this a lot. We've hired a lot of people and we just have a really hard time of letting them go. I mean, some of them we just build really close friendships with. You have to have the tough conversations. Like I didn't realize how tough it is until I actually had to do it myself.
But at the end of the day, we're building a creator company and the company needs to keep moving forward.
There's actually something more important here. And this is a framework that we learned from one of our coaches. There are 4 types of hires. There's a backpack, a bicycle, a self-driving car, and a rocket. These are all things that help you get from point A to point B, right? So like just replace this ship with one of these vehicles that I said. So a backpack is someone that just wears you down, right? You have to carry them literally on your back across the finish line. You're holding their hand. You're spending all your time just teaching them and reeling them in and talking to them about character and stuff. Now, a step above that is a bicycle. Like the bicycle will get you from point A to point B, but you still got to put in the work. Like you're pedaling pretty hard to get them over there. Yeah. Then you have the self-driving cars, right? And these are our favorites. You get them in the company. Here are the SOPs. Here are the guidelines. Have at it. I trust your creative direction. They're like a self-driving car. They will just go do the thing and they won't really need supervision. And then you got the rockets, right? These are the ones that have already done the thing a billion times. They've already done it to very high level excellence. And once you get these people into your company, they will literally launch you into the moon. When you hire a backpack, the best that they'll be is probably become a bicycle. And the bicycle will probably become a car, and the car might become a rocket sometime. But the rockets are like pretty rare.
So obviously it's great to think about hiring A players or hiring good talent. But the reality is many YouTube channels are startups, and startups don't have a lot of cash flow. So if you are constrained, what is the best strategy?
If you are a startup in the early stages, then you probably don't even have the revenue to afford A players. I learned this from Daniel Priestley. He would say that when you're first starting a business, you want to look for people who can just get the job done. I think he even calls them like Swiss Army knives. Like they can do a lot of things. They're kind of generalists. They're very flexible. They're fast learners. I think he even said like, just go to the bar and just find someone who has good character and is capable. And you're just looking for people who can get the job done because you're really trying to get content market fit as fast as possible. But once you get that content market fit, once you've established systems that actually get results, you can start looking for higher level players. And only then is I think you're actually eligible for the A players to want to play with you.
Yeah, I think that if you're starting as a scrappy startup, which all YouTube channels do start, it's very likely that some of those hires you bring on the team will do many different roles, right? Like a video editor might be someone who also makes thumbnails for you, or a scriptwriter might be someone who also finds the ideas and packages them for you. Like just looking at our role split, we learned how to do all of those things separately. That's what you call like the Swiss Army knife, right? Like someone who has a general understanding of everything to help build the system to get it working and functional. And then eventually you'll be able to offload and specialize.
But there is a balance too, right? You can't just go and find random people off the street. That was one of the problems that we faced. Like early on, we built up this massive audience of students, and then we started hiring directly from our audience. And so we had a bunch of students in our business. Their problem was they just were not capable. Great culture, like a lot of them great character, but they just couldn't do the thing. And it ended up being a lot more work on us and we weren't going anywhere. And that's where I would say, you want to find people that are smarter than you.
Ideally.
Who are actually, you can learn from them, who've already done the thing. And that person might not be an A player, or they might not even be a B player, but they've already done the thing and they already know how to do it. Again, it always comes back to this framework. Like you just got to make sure that you check all the 3 C's.
Yeah. There's something to be said here about not hiring someone directly into your team as well. I mean, some of the fastest ways that we've grown in our company is to work with consultants, work with coaches, and work with agencies. And the goal of working with those people was to, like you said, extract knowledge and get there faster. So we mapped out the fulfillment system. But that, like we said, is just one massive system of these 3 from going from constrained creator to a creator CEO. So looking at the other big systems, how would you break down, like, what are the marketing and sales systems for a creator company?
So for a creator company, one of the marketing and sales is to go secure brand deals and sponsorships, someone to actually communicate and negotiate with the brands, or even go and pitch to the brands, follow up with the brands.
Yeah, because once your channel starts growing and you nail that content market fit and you start building a very, very curated audience, other brands are going to see your channel and be like, okay, there's a lot of value that they can provide me. And so there was a very distinct point, like when we started growing quickly, we started getting a lot of inbound from these brands that wanted to sponsor and partner with us. And I remember us being so busy and so swamped. I don't even know how many like missed opportunities there might have been in there because we didn't have the attention or the ability to focus on making those connections.
So if you want an analogy, then this fulfillment is like a content production pipeline, right? Where the video gets made from ideation to publish. So for brand deals, there is a funnel to it. Like there's someone who is following up with emails, someone who is following up with a pitch deck, someone who is negotiating prices. There's just map it out, right? Every step of the way. And after you finish the brand deal, make sure you collect analytics, show the brand how it went, and then always follow up with like renegotiation for another brand deal. Like someone has to be doing every step of the way. And each of those has like SOPs too. Like I remember when we were doing brand sponsorships, we had like a whole SOP on like how to reach out to your dream brands. Like there was a whole list, like go and find the CMO, reach out to their LinkedIn, check their Instagram, like go to their events. It's like there's a whole thing, right?
Right, exact copy of like sentences, scripts that we send them.
And then you have the whole pitch deck. That's a whole other thing. So that would be an example of a brand deal funnel. If you're selling a product or a service, then you have like
it looks completely different.
It looks different. The funnel might be like your YouTube traffic sends leads to your appointment setter, and then you have like a sales call who closes the customer. So there's a whole thing that you just got to map out. There's a landing page in there somewhere. If you have a newsletter that you're building a list for, then that is also part of the funnel.
So as I was saying, is like the different kinds of ways that you make money, each of those have different systems. And each of those different systems have different steps and different SOPs depending on the type of business that you run. So it gets very, very complicated very fast. And we can see like how much work is on that end alone in just marketing and sales. Yet most constrained creators don't even have time to think about that. They're all stuck here in fulfillment. Let's move on to the operating systems because this is your domain.
Traction is a book by Gino Wickman, and it basically describes an operating system for entrepreneurs. It's called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And the most important thing about operations is just to make sure that everyone is aligned at all times. So the frequency of alignment really does matter. Like let's say you meet only once a month. Like it's kind of human nature to like put off all your work and then just cram everything, procrastinate right before the meeting and get all the work done.
Nothing will get done until the next meeting.
So if you meet more frequently, like say on a weekly basis, then people will naturally get more work done, right? They have less of a window to procrastinate. I think the actual term is Parkinson's law.
So I drew a little cog here because I think that's kind of illustrates what you mean. You want to keep this cog greased up and spinning.
The biggest systems in operations is setting targets, KPIs, and then just reverse engineering all the inputs that are required to meet the targets.
So these three are the core systems that turn constrained creators into creator CEOs. So constrained creators are thinking about their channel as just a series of videos, whereas a creator company thinks of it as scaling into a brand. And so let's just define that, like what actually is a brand? A brand is something that everybody has, whether you're paying attention to it or not. It's your identity, it's the content that you make, it's the messaging, everything that you do and what people associate you with. I think a fun way to think about brand is playing games like GTA. You can build this thing called street cred based on all the actions you do. Your reputation in that game becomes a certain way. Or if you like are very beneficial, you're helping people, you solve all the quests in the right way, then it builds a different kind of reputation. But everything you do contributes to what that reputation is. And so that reputation is your brand.
What is one of the biggest fears of a creator CEO or someone in this space? The biggest fear, I would say, at least for myself, maybe for you as well, is that you become irrelevant, right? In the game of content, there are going to be times of high views and low views. There's no avoiding it. Like creators will go up and down all the time. And that's just the game that you have to play when you enter the attention economy. And so how do you build a business that is durable enough to withstand the ups and downs? That is what scale is about. So in general, there are three big pillars to scale. And the first one here is trust. So this is a scale as it relates to creating content. So for scam, you can still make money with scams. I mean, I guess that's the definition of a scam, is like someone just made money off of you in an unethical way or sleazy way. But the money is fast and it's not sustainable. Like people find out that you're a scam, then you're done. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, you have to go on to the next scam.
Yeah, on to the next scam. But for trust, you can make a lot more money, and it's definitely a more long-term play. But it does take time to get going. I'm not saying that these are two options. I'm saying that you should not be scamming people,
Right.
and you should be going for trust. So what are things that are seen as scams? Well, there's like clickbait. You can still get views with clickbait. You can still get plenty of AdSense. There are things like slop, very common nowadays with AI. Basically anything that just focuses on dopamine. Like cheap dopamine. So like when you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or Shorts, the things that keep you glued to the screen but don't benefit you in any way, that is what I consider like cheap dopamine. It's just taking advantage of human nature. And this is content that is here today, gone tomorrow, right? And you can crank this out with content farms. Tons of faceless channels do this, right?
AI channels, faceless channels, clips channels.
Yeah.
That they just like repurpose clips from whatever, make lists. And, you know, in my experience, most of the scam side happens to be short form content, but there are very good examples of long form compilations of scammy stuff too, right?
So on the other end of the spectrum here, this is content that builds trust. We always like to use the 3 E's. So content that educates, content that entertains, content that empowers. The commonality between all these things is that they provide value to people.
So every piece of content that you put onto YouTube is sending signals to your viewers and to your audience about what kind of brand you're building. So let's use this as an example. So if the content you make lies on this side of the spectrum, it's scammy. Let's say you're just making cat videos or you're Rick-rolling people all the time. That is leading to people believing your brand is a scam. I don't want to form a deeper connection with this brand. But if a brand, for example, is an education brand and they're teaching me how to study for my exams, if they empower me by doing live study with me's for like 3 hours, I'm using examples from our first channel, Koi, then we start getting people asking us, oh, what ways can we work together? When we started getting comments like that, we started realizing that we need a place to bring all these people together, right? Like they want to hear from us more often. That's why we actually started a Discord community. And really quickly, I think we got to like 10,000 members in our community. And that's when we started actually connecting really deep with our audience. Some of those people became our team members. Some of those people started forming clubs. You know, they started a forum in that community and they started like arguing about our origin. Who do you like more, Mike or Maddie? Stuff like that. Like that is what you call turning an audience into a community. Like people who really want to take the next step and get more involved with your company. Your audience is asking you, they're begging you for other ways that you can provide value to them.
What value can you provide?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. YouTube is just a tool at the end of the day. But if I, for example, wanted to join Mr. Beast's community, then the value they can provide is, hey, can I be in your next video? Can I be one of the competitors and the contestants who can compete for that $1 million? Maybe you're not doing game shows, maybe you're not hosting challenges, but what that means is you're getting a deeper connection. Like they're going to get to meet him in person. So building real in-life community can be done off the platform. That's like a really smart way that these brands are doing it. We're seeing Jesser recently at VidCon just hosted this big basketball event where all of his audience and community members came together and got to watch and participate in this event, right? Dude Perfect is hosting events all around the world too. Colin and Samir, like when we first met them, we went to one of their events. I've been watching their content for a long time, but like actually getting to meet them in person, meeting other people in the community, that is building a deeper connection. And events and experiences are just one of the ways that you can increase your brand's reach. And we're going to talk about all the different ways you can actually do that later on. Every piece of content you create on YouTube, your reputation can either become more trustworthy or become more scam worthy or somewhere in the middle.
You put like bland here.
I think that's actually one of the worst things you can become, but we'll get back to that in a second. But the interesting thing is those two types of content don't have equal weight. For example, you could build trust for years and do one heinous scammy thing and it destroys your entire reputation. Mm-hmm. But if you've done a lot of scammy stuff in your life and you do one trustworthy thing, it does not negate all the scammy stuff that you've done, right? And so that's really why this is so valuable for brands. And that is so much more dangerous. But let's talk about this thing in the middle here, being bland. What do you mean by bland?
I would say bland content is stuff that is good or mediocre or average. And when you do things that are average, you blend in with all the other things that are average. I would say what separates bland from these two is that you're just not memorable.
I think it was Shakespeare. The quote was like, it's fine to be loved or hated, but there's nothing worse than being forgotten. At the heart of every creator, that is the thing they fear the most, is being forgotten. That all the art they put out there in the world, that they poured their heart and soul into making these videos week after week, and no one remembers it and no one appreciates it. That haunts me, definitely. It's like 5 years down the line, like, is anyone gonna remember the content that I made? Was anyone impacted by what I made? And I think the rest of when we talk about scale, we're going to talk about ways that you don't have to rely on just content to actually make sure you're brand lasts the test of time. So if this is your reputation, scale brand to trust. Only trust unlocks more opportunity to scale your brand. Because to scale a business means the business has to make more money. So media business is actually not that much different from a regular business in the ways that they can make money, right? So let's walk through all of the different monetization models that you have as a creator company.
All right. So everyone knows about first one, which is AdSense.
You post videos to YouTube, people can watch your content on YouTube, but they see ads. Then companies, they're called buyers in this case, will buy ad spots in YouTube videos, and then YouTube will pay you a percentage of that revenue. They pay creators for long form videos 55%, and then YouTube keeps 45%. Seems like a big split, but they're doing all of the work for you. All you have to do is post videos to their platform.
And there's a lot more to this. Like there's CPMs, RPMs. It doesn't matter like what niche you're in. Some niches get higher ad payouts than others. All right, so the second one is partnerships. So I'm actually chunking up a lot of these into groups because if you want to spell all of them out, there's like probably close to 40 different ways to monetize. But within partnerships, these are things like brand deals, sponsorships, affiliate partnerships, any sort of monetization where you partner with another company.
The majority of creators make most of their income from partnerships.
Partnerships is interesting because you can actually stack them. Like for example, if you get a sponsorship from a brand, you can also negotiate within it an affiliate deal too. So for example, we got sponsorships with Notion. We talk about their product on our channel, but then for every sale or sign up that we get through Notion, we also get some commission from that sign up in the form of affiliate deals. So that's how you could stack it.
I think partnerships is probably the most flexible of the monetization options as well. And I think a lot of creators need to understand how to leverage their own value. A one-time partnership is very different from a package, right? Like I think there's been times where where a brand came up to us and they're like, hey, we want one video integration. And then we negotiated it to where it's like, okay, let's do 4 videos over this amount of months and this many shorts.
Yeah, you as a creator do have more leverage. You just have to know how to communicate your value. But it's not so much that you're just trying to get more money from the brand that you're working with. You have to actually think about it as a partnership.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys are working together. So from your end, you have to communicate to them that you are giving them exposure to your audience. Like these are all people that love your product. So let me just give you exposure. You want them to win because if they win, then you win as well.
It's like, let them understand your analytics too. The more data you can give to the brands you want to work with and the more serious you show them that you are about your numbers and your business, like brands love it when creators think like creator CEOs, right? Because as a creator CEO, you understand business and you understand that if you want to work with another business, they also have goals, systems and stuff that they're looking to achieve with it. So if you can speak their language and show them this is why it's going to benefit you because of this, this, and this, they're going to be much more interested in working with someone who's very serious about this. And I think partnerships is just something that many constrained creators don't have time to think about. They don't have time to learn. And they end up taking bad deals. Like we've taken some pretty bad deals too. So there was this one brand, I'm not going to name any names, that we took a deal with early on that was a really bad investment. We didn't know any better, right? It was a one-time deal and we got paid a lump sum up front. But we didn't read the contract deeply enough. And there was a clause in there that gave them unlimited usage rights. Basically meaning they could use that content that we made for them forever. They ran this ad with my face on it for the next 5 years. And we never made another dime from it other than that first integration. So that was just a classic example of a brand taking advantage of a constrained creator like we were because we didn't know how to read the fine print. So you live and you learn, but understanding how to negotiate is super important for making these partnerships more meaningful.
I mean, that's a bigger deal than people think. Like, let's say they do some pretty unethical or scammy things 5 years later. That's still your face on the ad that you get associated with a scammy brand. One thing we learned from our sponsorship coach, Justin Moore, he believes that there is no such thing as just a one-off integration. Like, it's your duty to follow up with the brand and show them the analytics, show them the success. And every deal can potentially be endless if you just keep following up and doing a good job. All right, so let's move on to the third one here is jobs. Pretty self-explanatory. You put your content out there, it becomes your public resume, it becomes your public portfolio. You can get a job with it.
Yeah, and so by jobs, we also mean both part-time roles, full-time roles, and contract roles. And some of those deals can be exclusive or non-exclusive. There are some jobs that you can take where you can still build your own thing on the side.
All right, so the next one here is products. So there are basically two kinds of products that you can sell. You got the physical products like merch, e-commerce, or you got the digital products, things like online courses, templates,
Software. We have made the most revenue for our creator company through products, specifically through digital products. I think there's a huge benefit for educational creator companies to do digital products because the overhead and the margins are usually very favorable for you. When you're working with physical products, you have to think about a lot of things like shipping and handling, manufacturing, storage is a huge one. Storage, like if you're making items, like your house is gonna be full of boxes before you ship them out. And a lot of like logistics of sourcing and stuff like that. Whereas if you're working with digital products, anyone can just download it with a computer. So most of that stuff and overhead is gone.
There's pros and cons to both. For example, like I would say a lot of physical products, you can get that recurring revenue. If someone's buying, say like toilet paper from you, then they're gonna buy lots of toilet paper over time if they really like your brand. Whereas like if you're selling something like a course, then they'll probably only buy the course once. It also depends on the digital product. There's like memberships, there's subscriptions, that has recurring. People are not gonna buy tons of hoodies on recurring from you. So it depends on the product, but yeah.
We sold a variety of digital products, one of them being a Notion template. We sold a fair share of courses as well. We sold productivity courses and study and learning courses.
I think we made like 9 courses or something so far. Next one here is services. So basically your customers are paying you to do a service for them. For us, this is Koi Media, our YouTube agency, where we do consulting, we do production, we do strategy for other educational brands. But in general, if you have knowledge to share or skill set to teach, then you can provide a service. So you can provide services on a one-on-one basis or as a group, right? Something that's very popular right now are online communities. You start a community and people all have shared interests or they all want you to move towards a similar goal. And the last one here is experiences. So this is becoming probably the next frontier for creators because now it's so easy to create content, like especially with AI, like everyone's creating massive volumes of content. The thing that's gonna set you apart are your experiences. So like live events, workshops, ways to get people to come together and meet in real life. I think one of our favorite things about Spotter is that they love hosting events. So they have like their idea summit and they partner with other creators like Colin and Samir. And so them partnering with other creators to host events, that's kind of like doing both 2 and 6. But the main point here is to tie it back to scale. For many creators starting out, they're just relying on AdSense. And if you compare AdSense to the rest of the buckets here, it's probably the smallest fraction of most creator companies. Some creators even consider it negligible. But if AdSense is your only source of revenue, then you don't have any durability at all, right? Like if you're relying completely on views and views go up and down and it's unpredictable, then your AdSense will go with it, right? That is the definition of a fragile creator company. So your goal to escape being a constrained creator is to diversify into different revenue streams. And we're not saying that you have to go and do every single revenue stream, but there are certain revenue streams that are best fit for the kind of business that you're running. And the analogy that really clicked it for me is to think of a creator as an athlete. Michael Jordan made a lot of his money through playing basketball. But the moment he stops playing basketball, he'll stop making money from that stream. But luckily, by the time he finished playing, he already diversified his brand throughout a bunch of different other streams. For example, going into making shoes with Nike, and he was like sponsored in a lot of other brands. Like, remember like those Ballpark Franks or like the Hanes underwears? Like there were so many different sponsorships that he did, but he diversified to the point where even after he stopped playing, it didn't really matter. You are an athlete and you have only so many years in the spotlight where you can actually perform your sport. And when you stop posting videos, the AdSense goes with it. So you have a window where you have the views and when you're building an audience to diversify. If you want to think about a YouTuber who's doing it very well, first one that comes to mind is Mr. Beast. He's tried diversifying into things like Beast Burger, Feastables, the chocolate. He's building view stats, right? The SaaS. And not all of them were successful, but like say Feastables is making like hundreds of millions. Like you can argue right now, he's at a point where he's doing less views than he was like maybe a year ago. He's technically in a lull, but it doesn't really matter. Like his Feastables makes way more money than most of his channels combined. So that is diversification done very well.
Yeah. It's a classic not putting all of your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And on the education front, we have the same thing. We have people like Dan Koh, who still gets a lot of money from AdSense, but he also has digital products, he has consulting, and now he's building a SaaS product as well. So those are all examples of diversification done really well at the highest level. But there are also a lot of examples of diversifying too early and that backfires on you. It's actually really tricky to diversify well, because if you do it too soon, you could actually destroy your business.
You spread yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you don't have the systems in place.
I mean, I think we made a lot of mistakes with this as well.
For sure.
Like we tried to diversify our revenue way too early before we really understood how to build the system for them. Because if you go back to that previous systems example, where we had like the system here, we have, I'm just gonna put constrained, and then we have the CEO over here. There was the marketing, operations, and fulfillment for it. Every single one of these monetization streams here has its own marketing and sales system and its own fulfillment system, right? The content that you make is just the fulfillment for the AdSense piece, right? Or just the partnerships if you're doing sponsored content. But if you're building a digital product, there's a completely different system that needs to be built for that. And so as you can see, when you start diversifying your company, you're gonna get a lot of different pipelines. And they're all going to need to be running, and they're all going to need steps and SOPs and people to fill those spaces. And the same thing comes from the funnel. You're going to have many different funnels leading into your company. The mistake that a lot of creators make when they start getting that traction and then all this attention and all this quick spike in revenue, and they try to build too many at once, and then it just becomes a huge operational nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Because oftentimes the person who is building out these new systems, it is the creator, right? It is the person who is making the content. When you remove the person making the content and putting them elsewhere in the business, then you lose the content. That's the whole life source of your business.
And that's why we recommend build a full system first, right? Make sure that you have at least one of these monetization models working on autopilot and generating consistent revenue for your business, and then start to diversify into other streams. Depending on what type of creator company you're building, whether you're an entertainment channel, or your educational channel, it does influence which monetization model makes most sense for you, right? As an education channel, we probably wouldn't be looking to do a lot of physical products. I mean, we tried for a little bit making merch, making like these wallets and stuff, but that just didn't really match our brand, because the way that our company provides value is education, helping people solve problems. So you have to focus and think about what kind of value does your audience actually want to receive from you, and deliver more of that. For example, a different channel, like let's use Jesser as an example, they make basketball content. It makes a lot of sense for them to make physical.
To make basketballs.
They make basketballs and they sell out a lot of basketballs because it works for their brand. Like the people who were inspired by Jesser are kids who want to play basketball. So you have to really think about what value your audience wants and how you can connect that with the products that you're making. There has to be good integration there. So naturally, as you scale, more people start to work in your company. When more people work in the company, your expenses go up, which means you have to continuously make more money. So if your demand, right, this is demand over here. If the demand of your business is not higher than what you can supply, then your business is not going to be profitable. So it's really important that when you're scaling, you need to have a lot of demand. And in order to get more demand, you need more attention on your brand, right? You need more people paying attention to your brand, tuning in, watching your videos, or finding about your brand in other ways. That brings us to the next pillar of scale, which is really important. How do you get more attention? Is through diversifying the ways that you distribute your content or distribute your brand's identity.
So distribution is basically getting your content out to your audience.
But not all the platforms and all the places you post your content are equal.
There's two different categories of platforms. It's what we call rented and owned. So YouTube falls under rented platform. Just like all the other socials, just like Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, those platforms own your audience. So if those platforms were to disappear tomorrow, then your way to distribute content to your audience disappears as well. It's just completely gone. And this becomes particularly dangerous when the only way for you to reach your audience is from a rented platform. That's why we always recommend that you try to get your audience from rented platforms onto your own platforms. So own platforms is basically any way to reliably communicate with your audience, having their emails, having their phone numbers, or having their address if you want to send them things.
There's a reason why people go to YouTube to post content, because these rented platforms have great discoverability. A lot of people are already using those platforms. And when you post content to YouTube, I think YouTube has one of the best discoverabilities of all the platforms because complete strangers can find your content. Whereas on the own side, yes, you do control your audience. Like you can send them emails, you can send them text messages whenever you want to, but there's no discoverability on this side. They have to opt into it, right? They have to sign up for it. So that's the big distinction here between rented and owned. You're obviously going to want to use both. The reason right now that your audience is coming to these rented platforms is because that is where you can give value for them, right? But if you're thinking about your brand as bigger than YouTube, going off platform, what are the ways that you can provide value to your audience that's off of YouTube? So on our channel at Koi, we teach students how to be more productive. There are only so many videos you can watch about how to be more productive, right?
Yeah.
And eventually you're just going to have to do the things to be more productive. And a lot of the problems that our students were having was centered around accountability. And so if we wanted to provide more value, then we needed to bring them to a different platform like Discord. That's why we built a community there. And through there, we started hosting these events, we started doing DMs, and we started creating a different experience for them to get value from us. And so if you want to move people from rented to owned, figure out what are other ways that you can provide value. Exploring some of these other monetization strategies over here. Maybe building a community, building templates or digital products. And so the goal here is not to like try to completely stop using rented platforms. You should definitely use them to your advantage, but also at the same time, move people to your owned audience. Just like monetization, we want to diversify where we're distributing our content to so that if any of those buckets fail, then at least our business is safe. So a smart strategy for distribution, like once you have all the systems running, is of course to post your content and distribute it to as many rented platforms as possible and as many owned platforms as possible. You just want to be everywhere. This is why the biggest brands in the world, like Gary Vaynerchuk, he posts multiple times a day on every single platform, even platforms that no one else is paying attention to, right? Like Snapchat. I think he's the only person who is really into Snapchat that I know. But his audience is massive, and he is one of the smartest and wealthiest entrepreneurs in the game.
To be honest, I don't even remember where Gary Vaynerchuk started with his initial platform.
Me neither.
What is it, like Instagram or something?
I have no idea.
I guess that's the whole point, is that you don't know and it doesn't matter. Like take, for example, other people like Mr. Beast or Logan Paul or people who started on YouTube. If you were to erase YouTube tomorrow, Mr. Beast could still build up his following on any other platform that he wants. I guess Logan Paul didn't even start on YouTube, right? He's probably started on Vine or something. That's the whole point though, is like wherever he started, the initial platform where you started, that is where you get your traction, but the goal is diversification. The goal is to not need to be dependent on any platform.
So we talked about some of the benefits of rented platforms, right? Obviously there's discoverability and everyone's ever using them, so there's a lot of eyeballs there. But what are some of the benefits of having your own audience? Like obviously you said you can reach them, but what else can you do?
I think the big difference here is that your owned audience chose to come with you. Whereas in the rented space, they're kind of just casual. They're new people coming by, checking out your content, and they could be here today, they're gone tomorrow. But these people chose to come with you. And so they're warmer. Whenever you try to talk about your offers, talk about your products, they're more likely to be receptive to it. Whereas the majority of the audience over here is like wide market. People are here usually more cold.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That's why I started drawing these colors in here. There's a classic funnel in marketing about cold, warm, and hot, right? A cold audience has not really bought into your brand yet, but a hot audience will basically eat up and consume everything that you've ever made, right?
Yeah.
Like you could probably think of some brands that like in your mind, this is like the most amazing brand ever. And no matter what kind of content they put out or what kind of products they put out, you're probably gonna buy it without question. Right? Do you have a brand like that in mind or no?
I hate to admit it, but since right now Apple just announced a new iPhone, I think a few years back, I've gotten to a point where I don't really care like what new features are on the iPhone anymore. I just think like, oh, my iPhone's 3 years old. I guess it's time for an update. And I'll just go buy the next one. Because I already trust that Apple has put in the work and the due diligence to make a great product.
Yeah, I've been to your house. You own like almost every single Apple product, right? You have an iPad, you have a watch, you have the Mac Mini, you have
all of it. Yep.
You have the Apple Home. So that is like the behavior of someone who's hot for your brand. Like they will buy and they will consume and they will rep everything that you do no matter what.
But that's an interesting point because I'm actually not on Apple's mailing list. I'm not. Well, I don't think I am.
You probably are. You probably get Apple support emails.
I don't remember ever reading any Apple emails or getting phone calls from them, but I just hear their name and their brand all over the place. That is the outcome of scaling a business and diversifying your distribution channel, is that at some point where you get so big, you don't even need a platform, period. You're just completely platform agnostic. You're just part of culture now. I think other examples that are much more similar to like a YouTuber's world would be brands like Star Wars or Harry Potter. Star Wars came up in the theaters, in movies, but then it made it really big on VHS. And like, look today, VHS is completely dead. CDs are like, I don't know if people can buy Blu-ray anymore, right? But everything is streaming now. And yet Star Wars has lasted the test of time. Same with Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter started in the bookstore and now it's literally everywhere. They have theme parks and they have Broadway shows and everything.
Star Wars is going to be around and remembered till the end of history, right? It's always going to be around. And I like that you mentioned that, because those brands, the way that you achieve that with your brand, it always comes back to the content. Constrained creators are so focused on just making videos, they think that YouTube itself is the ultimate goal. But if you think about all big companies, or like the biggest creators who have elevated to become these big brands, like Mr. Beast, like Dude Perfect, like these guys, they're not only on YouTube. Think of YouTube as just a small piece of your overall business. But the first step is actually making really good videos. By making really incredible content, you're building an audience. This audience that you're building is eventually going to crave more and more of what you can give them. Mr. Beast started moving towards these challenges, these spectacles and these games, right? And I guarantee you, if you go into the comments, so many people are like, how do I get involved in this? I want to be part of this. Like, I want to join this game. Even my girlfriend and I, when we were watching Beast games recently, we just kept saying over and over, like, dang, like, what would it take to get onto the show right now? Like, I want to be here to compete for $1 million.
So the next question is, how do you actually get people to want to go deeper with you? To want to build a deeper connection with your brand, to want to actually leave this rented platform where they just feel so at home, like they're already scrolling TikTok or YouTube, and to get them to go off the platform to wherever it is you are.
I remember when we first rebranded our channel from Mike and Maddie to Cajun Koi Academy, we got really deep in exploring this exact question. And there was a book I read by Patrick Hanlon called Primal Branding. And I thought that was one of the best books I've ever read about how to build an audience that will eventually become your diehard community. And there are 7 principles in that book that we tried to implement, which allowed us to create the brand that became what it is today.
So Patrick Hanlon identified a few techniques that you can use. And I think we took a lot of them to heart too. The very first one I thought was the most important one was the creator story, right?
The creation story.
The origin story, whatever you want to call it.
Your brand story.
Brand story, right.
So where did your brand come from? So we actually took a different approach to this. I think a lot of personal brands just tell their origin story, which is super smart. You should definitely be like, we've already talked about early in the storytelling section, why it's so important to tell your story, because that lets people know where you came from, like who you are. Why should I even care about your brand at all? We took a different approach and we wanted to build something that was bigger than ourselves. We took the Disney approach, the Harry Potter approach, where we just created a fictional story because we knew that we wanted to connect with students. And at that point, we were not going to be students anymore. So we still wanted them to relate to something that was outside of us. So that's why we created this whole fictional universe that was like out in space. It was a space academy called Cajun Koi. We kind of blended together like Harry Potter and Star Wars together into something. We wanted to make a story that they could fall in love with and relate to.
That's a good point, right? You weren't just telling your story. You weren't just telling their story. You were telling all of our collective stories, right? Because we were helping students who were basically younger versions of ourselves. And that's actually a huge benefit. Because we know a lot of companies who are building products, making content for people that they have never actually been. There are a lot of examples out there of, SaaS companies building tools for creators, and there's like no creators in the company. But you have something like Spotter or ViewStats with Mr. Beast actually inside it. They're building stuff for their collective story. So one thing that worked very well was when we talked about the different brain types, right? We're saying how like, oh, Mike has one brain type and then Maddie has a different brain type. And then there's a third brain type. And then people from our audience, and just, you can see it in the comments, everyone was like, oh, which type am I? And they were like, some people related more to me, some people related more to you. And people really related to that because they just all saw themselves as the same, right? Similar to someone else, similar to their neighbor in the audience.
This is because we come from medicine and there are a lot of people who study a lot in medicine. But I noticed that there were certain students who would study a lot and in a very particular way. And then whenever I tried to do those methods, it wouldn't work for me. And I felt like I was wrong. I felt like there was something wrong with me. But the more I learned about learning science and how the brain works, I just realized that's just not how I want to do things. And so I found a different strategy that worked well for me. And I still got the same, if not better results. And through that discovery, it was like, there's probably a lot of other students who feel the same way. That all the people who post content on YouTube about studying productivity have a very particular viewpoint on it. But it doesn't work for everybody. And so we created the brain types to help everyone who didn't feel like they fit in find out why. And the whole idea of Cage and Koi Academy was about self-discovery. It was about understanding yourself so you can be the best and most productive version.
I like that you mentioned that because one of the brand building elements is to identify the enemy, right? The non-believers, the people who don't believe in the same thing that you do. Because we believe that everyone has their own style and there is no one size fits all, right? That's the enemy. The enemy is you have to follow this regimented plan or else you will fail.
And on the opposite end of that, which is the third piece of primal branding, is you have to have a creed. I love the quote by Seth Godin, who's like the father of marketing to me. People like us do things like this. And there was one final piece of primal branding, which we used to tie everything together, which was we created rituals for our community. Every day for over a year, I got on Discord and did a 1-hour co-working session in our community every day for a year. And that became a ritual. We called it focus sessions. And we created this whole structure about it, how it's like evidence-based and how it's going to help you get into flow. And people really, really connected with that because we had a lot of students and learners come in who couldn't focus well. But it was using our framework and using this ritual that they were all able to get their work done, right? And make progress in their life. And so not only did that ritual become a habit that we all did, but they associated that with something positive. They associated it with getting a good grade on an exam or being more productive for the day. And that just kept bringing them back. It was awesome, right? It was just like a fun community that we had built there.
I mean, there's so many more techniques from that book. I definitely recommend you guys all check it out. But I will say that a few that are often overlooked are things like icons or what is it, lexicons, jargon or something?
Yeah, having a shared language.
Shared language, that's what it is. So like in the brands that everyone knows, Star Wars have lightsabers, like may the force be with you. Like things like that. Being on YouTube, you have such an advantage because they can see you, they can hear you, they can feel the vibe of your studio, your background.
Another one that's really popular that you can do on YouTube well is recurring characters, right? Think of your YouTube channel like a TV show. What are all the different characters that might hop into your videos and stuff? Obviously in ours, like we had each other. So the channel was called Koi, Cage and Koi, but Mike was a character. Sometimes Maddie would be in there, sometimes in the same video. You know, sometimes I think your wife would like walk through the background or something like that. And then we also made up characters in this universe. Like we had the panda bear for the Kuma. We had an AI Misty, like the Jarvis for Tony Stark.
Yeah, someone even built like a Misty bot in the private community too. Yeah, where they can access and use it for study timers.
That was the most like fulfilling part about building a brand this way is that you know when people really connect with your brand when outside of the platform, they are contributing to the lore of your brand, right? Like in our Discord community, there was a forum where we had some really talented like artists. They were drawing cartoons and comics and stories about our brand. I was like, this is so cool, right? Like we don't even have to do it anymore. Like they're totally bought into our world here. The concept we're talking about here is world building,
which is a little harder to explain in words, but it's basically creating your vibe, creating the personality of your brand. And the way that we approached it was we just actually borrowed the vibes from other worlds that we really liked. Like our academy was borrowed from Star Wars and Harry Potter. Like we took the idea of the 4 houses and we turned them into 3 clubs. We took the idea of the force and we turned it into focus. It was pretty obvious to people like where this all came from, right? But I think that was the whole point because then people would associate the same feelings of nostalgia and fun with our brand. And so if you're trying to do that for your creator company, just think about what kind of world you're trying to borrow from.
This is like why there's so much attention to detail with props, with language, with the personality, with the characters and everything like that. I think a YouTuber who does this really well, obviously we talk about him so much, is Mr. Beast, right? Jimmy's the main host, but you have like Carl, who's in a lot of videos. All these characters that keep coming back and then they have their own channels too. And they all can mingle together, right? It's like, that's the power of building a brand that can extend across different verticals.
So I would say when it comes to brand, you have world building, which is kind of creating the vibe, creating the culture. And then you also have IP or intellectual property. It's like how we do things. You briefly mentioned it. It's the way that we do things. So for example, one of the series of videos that we made called the Ultimate Study Skills series, we had specific frameworks and techniques that we would teach, that we built through research and trial and error on ourselves and experimenting on our students. That's our IP. That the students wanted to go way deeper on. They wanted us to actually coach them and teach them on how to use those techniques. And that is where things like our courses and our digital products were born.
You know where we got that idea from, actually? In Star Wars, there's this thing called the Force. And it's this like mystical, magical thing that no one really understands how it works, but they kind of just like create this magic system for it. We were like, is there a way to create some idea like the Force, but make it real and make it actually useful, which is why we call it focus energy. And the way that you harness focus energy is to do all these evidence-based practices that actually work, right? These are evidence-based practices that people use to get into flow and get into focus. We create this fictional story, but the value you get from it is actually applicable. The brand that we wanted to build was one that not only educated, but also entertained. The smartest educational brands, at least, have philosophies or frameworks for how they do things, right? They have some proprietary system. They have some 4-step framework, some value equation, something that they have that everyone who participates in that community can get behind and be like, this is how we do things. And so all this to say, these are things that you can think about for your brand, but remember that we're in the scale phase here. I think a trap that a lot of creators get into is worrying about this stuff too early.
Yeah, I would say focus on the first 3 phases first, right? Strategy, storytelling, systems, dial those in, and then you can pay more attention to scale. I agree, like some channels go way deep on trying to build a brand too early.
It reminds me of that line from The Social Network, the movie, when Eduardo's like, we need to start selling and making money right now. And then Jesse Eisenberg is like, we don't even know what Facebook is yet. Like, why are we trying to monetize it and be scammy before we even know what it is? And so the problem with trying to brand too quickly is you haven't validated your skill set yet. You know, people aren't paying attention to you yet. You don't have the trust yet. And so focus on making great content that tells a great story, get people to pay attention to you. And once you have learned that skill, then it's now time to start thinking about brand, right? But I think doing the other way around, there are better steps to take first.
The whole point of scale here is to build a lasting brand. You're trying to build something that's durable, that will last the test of time, that will survive through all the ups and downs of the content game. And so you have to think about every single piece of content that you put out, every single product that you put out, every single partnership, brand integration, live event, every single platform, all those pieces of content is like a brick in your castle.
All right, so we just went through a lot. We went through strategy, storytelling, systems, and scale to turn your channel into a creator company. But information without execution is just entertainment. You need to take action while that information is still fresh in your mind. So before you click off, please download our playbooks, our systems, our strategies, and use them. The goal is not for you to just passively consume this information at the gym or on your commute or something, but we also want to hear from you. So drop a comment below, let us know, what are you building? And more importantly, what is your biggest constraint? Is it finding content market fit, monetization, or building a team?
Because we have a goal by the end of the year and into 2026. We're going boots on the ground, in person, to find real problems and real solutions. Not just from us, but from industry experts, people behind the scenes at the biggest channels, the operators who actually run creator companies, the stuff most creators never get to see. And we want to bring you with us. And so if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I know there's probably been thousands of notifications fighting for your attention. You gave us like 3 or 4 hours of your time. It means the world to us. So yeah, let's build some creator companies.